It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301. The Queen Mother is critically ill. After the Kingdom of the Netherlands took away the Alaska Peninsula and the Alexander Archipelago, the United States of America still found the Russian Empire and reached a deal again. However, the Alaska Peninsula east of the Bering Strait was no longer in the same situation, but became the Kamchatka Peninsula on the Asian continent southwest of the Bering Sea. Is it true that small trends can be changed, but big trends cannot be changed? William IV looked at the Pacific map with a serious face. The eastern part of the North Pacific to the north of the central part is the United States of America. In America, British Columbia and British Canada has been occupied by the United States of America, and the north is the Alaska Peninsula and the Alexander Archipelago. The south of the west is the Japanese Archipelago, and the north of the west is the Kamchatka Peninsula that has just been traded. Add to that the Russian Far East north of the Bering Sea, and it has really become lively here. However, at this time, because the Russian Empire had little influence in the Far East and Japan was still weak, the North Pacific became the sphere of influence of the Netherlands and the United States of America. Although the Mexican French army in the southeast had some influence, it was only an outsider. William IV could not help but admire Seward. This guy has a good vision. Unfortunately, he was born at the wrong time and met Lincoln and me. Since you have violated the core interests of the Netherlands, the United States federal government cannot keep you. Although I admire your talent, every expansion of the territory of the Netherlands and the United States will bring doubts from other countries, especially their respective old rivals. However, even so, the Far East is too far away from them, so they don't have any strong sense of crisis. Therefore, although they expressed concern in diplomacy, especially the French Empire wanted to raise the tone of criticism, but because they didn't wipe the shit off their bodies, they didn't let the two countries appear. At the same time, they were criticized by other countries in China. With the help of the Kingdom of Siam and the Netherlands and Britain, they lost more points in Western public opinion. Therefore, the impact of the expansion of the Netherlands and the United States was eliminated silently. But is it really so? Different people have different opinions. William IV would not believe it. At least, he believed that Queen Victoria of Britain, Napoleon II of France, William I of Prussia, Joseph I of Austria-Hungary and others would not forget it so easily. But so what? On May 20, 1867, Queen Mother Anna Pavlovna of the Kingdom of the Netherlands was critically ill, and the Dutch royal family was in a cloud of sorrow. This time, even Alexander II hurried over. In the Dutch royal palace, King William IV of the Netherlands and Queen Alexandra of the Queen Mother Anna were on both sides of the Queen Mother. Queen Alexandra's pregnant belly was already very obvious, and next to her, the maid led William IV's eldest son, who was almost 1.5 years old, Prince Albert Christian William, Prince of Orange and Grand Duke of Australia, and the first great-grandson of Queen Mother Anna. Not far from them stood the former King of the Netherlands, now William II of the Kingdom of Greece, and the Queen Mother of the Netherlands, Queen Sophie of the Kingdom of Greece. Next to him was William II's younger brother, William IV's uncle, Archduke Hendrik, and his wife, Princess Amalia of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach. William IV's aunt and uncle, Princess Sophie, who married into the Kingdom of Saxony, and Archduke Karl Alexander of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach. Then there was William IV's younger brother, the current Crown Prince Frederick of the Kingdom of Greece. The above are the members of the Dutch royal family. Hug your friends tightly, but you must hug your enemies even tighter. Hug them tight enough so that they can't even move a step. William IV looked at his grandmother, William II's mother, and Queen Anna Pavlovna, the wife and queen of William II of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who was lying on the bed. There were some tears in his eyes. This was the first time he had cried since he came to this world in 1857. It was this old grandmother in front of him. When he had just crossed over, he was at a loss and didn't know how to integrate into this new environment. It was this old woman in front of him, the Grand Duchess of the Russian Empire, the sixth daughter of Paul I, the younger sister of Nicholas I, the aunt of Alexander II, and the old Queen Mother of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. These identities are not just identities, but more of a sensitivity of the royal family members of various countries to the political arena. Queen Mother Anna Pavlovna was the political enlightenment teacher of William IV in this world. She was also the backer of the Dutch royal palace after William IV crossed over. Therefore, William IV was more affectionate to her than his mother Queen Sophie and his father William III. Very good. Queen Mother Anna raised her hand tremblingly, and William IV hurried over and lowered his head. The former habitually stroked his head with satisfaction. Born on January 18, 1795, Queen Mother Anna, who is now over 72 years old, has wrinkles all over her face, but she is full of energy when she sees her children and grandchildren. I was right about you, Hendrik. You are much better than your grandfather and your father. At this point, she scolded William III, who was not far away, without any politeness. The latter's face changed, and then he lowered his head with a bitter smile. He did not resist, and it was unknown whether he agreed or disagreed with the statement that his father was not as good as William IV. Archduke Hendrik next to him teased his elder brother, but under the threatening gaze of the other party, it could only disappear. However, William II's youngest son, Crown Prince Frederick, had a trace of jealousy in his heart. Because of his young age, he did not hide it well. Although he reacted quickly later, William IV did not see it because he was lying in front of the bed, but it fell into the eyes of Queen Alexandra, who was standing. She could not help but be alert and secretly remember it. All of you go out, I want to say a few words to Hendrik. She waved her hand and asked everyone inside to go out except William IV and Queen Alexandra. The sons, daughters, daughters-in-law, and grandsons were all driven away, leaving William IV and his wife alone. Everyone was helpless, but they still followed Anna's request and went out. When the door closed, Queen Mother Anna's eyes shot out sharp light, and when they swept towards Alexandra, especially when they fell on her bulging belly, she instantly said gently, "Like you, I was born a princess of a country. But being a princess is always different from being a queen. A princess can be casual, but a queen has to assist the king in ruling the country. To be honest, I used to think that your husband should marry a princess of a big country, which would match his status. I even had my eyes on the princesses from Queen Victoria's family in the UK." Chapter 302, The Netherlands Mourns. Seeing Queen Alexandra trembling and wanting to speak but holding back, Queen Mother Anna gave her an admiring look. William IV happened to catch this scene. He looked at Queen Mother Anna in confusion. The latter did not give him a good look and motioned him to listen in. It seemed to be saying, "I am helping you teach your wife a lesson." William IV shrugged helplessly. "But, you know what kind of person your husband is. He actually said that he had someone he liked." "Well, I remember that year was 1861. So after my questioning, he told me about you. I was against it at the time. After all, your father was just a little prince at the time, and he was from a branch family. But your husband claimed that he was very optimistic about your father. He even threw dirty water on the family of Queen Victoria of England for this." Queen Alexandra was a little sad when she heard about her father's status, but when she heard that William IV actually went home with Victoria, she couldn't help showing her curiosity. Queen Mother Anna seemed to have known that she would be like this. She looked at William IV lovingly, and then her face was full of smiles. She smiled and said, "He actually said that our Dutch royal family is now in a harmonious family and everything will be prosperous. We should find a happy family to marry. Therefore, he does not want to find a royal member of Queen Victoria who has just become a widow to come to the Dutch royal palace. Listen, this reason is too far-fetched." When Queen Alexandra heard this, a warm current rushed into her chest, and she looked at William IV with love. Seeing the remarkable effect, Queen Mother Anna gave William IV a look to learn from her, and William IV rolled his eyes. Seeing that her goal had been achieved, Queen Mother Anna asked Queen Alexandra to go out as well. When the door closed, the smile on the old queen's face disappeared, and her face turned extremely pale. Seeing this, William IV was extremely worried. This is what happens when people get old. Over 70 years old is considered a long life in Europe, at least better than my father Paul I, and longer than my grandmother Catherine II. Not to mention my brother Nicholas I. At this point, Queen Mother Anna said again, "My great-grandfather William I was over 71 years old, not to mention that your grandfather died at the age of 47. Therefore, I have lived a few years longer than them, which is a gain. At least they have never seen their great-grandson." William IV was silent when he heard this. "You are a capable person. Since your grandfather William II died in 1849, You have almost grown up by my side since you were 9 years old. I have watched you grow up step by step, from a small sapling to a towering tree. The Netherlands has also changed from a country that was almost dismembered to a powerful country today. Although it is still not as good as the 5 traditional powers in Europe, the 5 powers did not evolve completely overnight. Do you understand? William IV nodded quickly. Looking at the tiredness on the face of the old Queen Mother Anna, he couldn't help but worriedly said, "Grandma, you should rest." The old Queen Mother Anna shook her head and said, "Grandma knows her condition. She may not be able to get up if she lies down. Okay, listen to me." Upon hearing this, William IV immediately stopped trying to persuade him. Queen Mother Anna asked, "Alexander II is my nephew and your cousin. He came to Amsterdam to visit me in person a few days ago. What do you think?" William IV pretended to say, "Grandmother, Alexander II is concerned about you, his only relative." Old Queen Mother Anna glared at William IV. "What care? Don't play dumb." William IV said seriously, "Grandmother, your nephew seems to be preparing to unite your grandson's vast momentum to resolve the current image problem of the Russian Empire." Old Queen Mother Anna nodded and sighed. The Russian Empire has drunk too much liquor and is straightforward. It does lack the twists and turns of the South. William IV smiled bitterly and said, "Grandma, are you saying that we are scheming?" Old Queen Mother Anna did not continue to dwell on this, but said, "You know the relationship between the Russian Empire and the Netherlands. The two royal families have been friends for generations. This friendship must last forever." William IV understood that this was one of the main purposes of keeping him here today. "I wanted to say that the Netherlands did not have the ability to do this, and that there would be differences in interests, but when I saw that the wrinkles on the face of my grandmother, who used to be very energetic, had already covered her cheeks, and despite pretending, she could not hide the fact that her body functions were so weak, so William IV could not help but nod his head. The Netherlands and the Russian Empire will remain friendly." When William IV said this solemnly, the old Queen Mother Anna showed a relaxed smile on her face, but then the smile gradually disappeared. Finally, William IV's face turned pale, and the old Queen Mother Anna closed her eyes, the kind that she would close her eyes for the rest of her life. On May 25, 1867, the old Queen Mother of the Netherlands met with her nephew, the Russian Emperor Alexander II, and many members of the Dutch royal family at the Dutch royal palace. She died on the same day at the age of over 72. The Kingdom of the Netherlands held a national funeral, including the Netherlands, Western Greenland, Australia, the East Indies, New Guinea, Fukuoka, Hawaii, the South Pacific Islands, the Alaska Peninsula and the Alexander Archipelago, Suriname, the Netherlands Antilles and Aruba, the Netherlands Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, Zambia, Mozambique, the United Arab Emirates, etc. All the overseas territories of the Netherlands mourned for 3 days. In addition to the Netherlands and abroad, the Russian Empire also mourned at the request of Alexander II, showing respect for the old Dutch queen, who still retained the status of Grand Duchess Anna Pavlovna in the Russian Empire. In addition, the royal families and governments of Europe, America and Asia sent representatives to the royal family and government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to attend the funeral. Even Louis I of Portugal and Napoleon III of France, who were at odds with the Netherlands, joined in this time. It seems that this funeral has become an opportunity to ease relations, and William IV is willing to accept this goodwill regardless of public or private. So with mutual consent, the international relations of the Netherlands quickly improved again. It must be said that international changes are frequent, and former friends may suddenly become enemies, and enemies sometimes often become good friends who know each other well. William IV is not surprised by this. The funeral was conducted in accordance with the etiquette of the highest member of the European royal family, the Queen. William IV did not get out of this sadness until August 20, 1867, because, in this month, a new member of the Dutch royal family appeared. Queen Alexandra gave birth to a princess. After William IV discussed with Queen Alexandra and obtained the consent of William II, in order to commemorate the newly lost old Queen Anna Petrovna, the newly born and baptized Dutch royal princess was named Anna. In fact, William IV seemed to want to show his love for her by directly conferring her the title of Grand Duke of Fukuoka Island, a far eastern territory he had just purchased, upon her birth. Chapter 303, The Mexican Emperor to be Shot? While King William IV of the Netherlands held a funeral for his grandmother, Queen Anne of the Netherlands, the changes in the world did not stop. On May 3, 1864, the French Empire Army entered Mexico City. The former Mexican President Benito Juárez led his army into the Confederate States of America. Archduke Maximilian I, the younger brother of Emperor Franz Joseph I of the Austro-Hungarian Empire supported by Napoleon III, was officially declared the Emperor of Mexico. However, most Mexicans did not agree with this status, so they formed a large number of guerrilla opposition teams to fight back against the invasion of the French army, which made Maximilian I's status shaky and unjustifiable. The Mexican President Benito Juárez, who fled north, was originally because the Davis government of the Confederate States of America suppressed the other side in order to fight against the Confederate States of America in the north, so as to avoid the dissatisfaction of the French Empire. However, as they reconciled with Britain and the Confederate States of America, the Davis government no longer oppressed the other side. The former President Benito Juárez actually established a base in Chihuahua, a Mexican border region bordering the Confederate States of America, specifically to resist the rule of France and Maximilian I. They occupied the geographical advantage, and the other occupied advanced weapons and the huge French Empire, supplemented by Austria. The two sides gradually reached a balance over the years. Therefore, the area north of Torreon, Mexico, with the support of the Confederate States of America and the Confederate States of America, became the territory of Benito Juárez. The south was in the hands of Maximilian I, who was supported by the two countries headed by France and Austria. If it continued, Maximilian I's position would be more consolidated, but his ideal was difficult to realize. In 1866, the Austrian Empire ruled by his brother Joseph I was shocked when it was defeated by the Kingdom of Prussia. After that, Prussia actually kicked Austria out of the German Confederation, which was dominated by Austria, and was even more shocked. He knew that from then on, he might become a puppet in the hands of Napoleon III of the French Empire. Although he knew that his brother Joseph I had actually joined Hungary to form the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he had high hopes for it. However, when Joseph I wrote to him later, he lamented that his rights were limited, which clearly told him that the Austro-Hungarian Empire would not help him rule Mexico. The most destructive thing was that starting in February 1867, Napoleon II's various resistances in Britain due to his dissatisfaction with helping the Austrians occupy Mexico, and because of the reconciliation between the United States of America and the Confederate States of America, the two parties' clear statements against French infiltration made France begin to act cautiously towards Mexico. This made Maximilian I's original ambitions wither instantly. But this was not the worst. After that, the French Empire actually launched a war in the Far East and Southeast Asia. What worried him most was that the French Empire was actually defeated there, and every victory was a miserable victory. Moreover, this small country in the Far East had such strong diplomatic capabilities that almost all European countries had close contacts with him. As a neighbor of the Kingdom of Siam, the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the south, despite the opposition of the French Empire, vigorously promoted the sanctions bill of the Hague International Court, which had just been established in The Hague, Netherlands, against the French Empire. And it was also supported by most European countries, which made him worry about Napoleon II's French Empire. After that, the South American countries joined and Britain followed, which made Maximilian I already look bleak, because although the French Empire resisted the pressure of sanctions and continued to wage war in the Far East, what he saw was that the small country actually launched a series of counterattacks, and Napoleon II's Far East army was almost still spinning in place until now, and it was difficult to make great progress. But the loss of the French army was tens of thousands. Directly at the end of May 1867, the French Empire actually lost nearly 40,000 French troops in the Far East, which was originally thought to be a small invasion war, and the South Vietnamese vassal army also exceeded 20,000. Compared with France, the number of the Kingdom of Siam was only 50,000, which was less than that of the French side. Of course, those civilians were not counted. The Kingdom of Siam is said to have 8 million people, according to the French national-to-military ratio 30 million French people and 1/60th of the 500,000 troops. The Kingdom of Siam can obviously form about 140,000 people, that is to say, the Kingdom of Siam can currently mobilize more than 80,000 troops. And in wartime, if the Kingdom of Siam can also increase its military service and recruit soldiers into the army, then the situation of the French Empire can be described as bad. Maximilian I's concerns are also playing out all over the world. Napoleon III, under the dissatisfaction of Prime Minister Olivier and the domestic mood, did something that Maximilian I of Mexico feared the most. On June 10, 1867, Napoleon III, citing domestic opposition and insufficient troops due to the tense situation in the Far East, and the pressure of opposition from the north and south of the United States, ordered the French troops in Mexico to gradually withdraw from Mexico. The withdrawal of the French Empire was a huge touch to the royal family, including Emperor Maximilian I of Mexico. For this reason, Maximilian I asked his Queen Carlotta to return to Europe to deal with the more dangerous and unfavorable situation that Mexico was about to enter. After returning to the European continent, the Queen lobbied everywhere to oppose the withdrawal of French troops. She represented Maximilian I in Paris, Vienna, Rome and other Mexican allies to seek help, but her efforts failed. Just as she was about to return to Mexico City, a bad news spread, which made her trip blocked by Vienna. It turned out that Maximilian I was attacked by Juarez's northern army to the south shortly after his queen left because the French army retreated to the Far East. When Maximilian I saw that Mexico City was occupied, he could only retreat to Querétaro and make it the new capital. But when Queen Querétaro had just given a speech in the French Empire, the Kingdom of Austria under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Milan Parliament of Italy and was rejected, Maximilian I was besieged for several weeks and was arrested when he tried to break through the blockade on June 23. Moreover, President Benito Juárez ordered the Mexican military court to execute those who had offended the people by subverting Mexico. This news spread like a whirlwind across America and reached Europe, causing great shock in Italy. After becoming emperor in North America, European royal family members actually had to face execution. This made the countries that had been pretending to be indifferent suddenly shocked, especially the royal families of various countries. You must know that in European history, there are few precedents of kings being executed by the enemy due to war and other reasons. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, France retreats, Austro-Hungarian Empire advances. After learning about this, European monarchs such as Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, William I of Prussia, Alexander I of the Russian Empire, Charles XV of Sweden, Christian IX of Denmark, Louis I of Portugal, Isabel II of Spain, Emmanuel II of Italy, William IV of the Netherlands, William II of Greece, etc., who had originally been indifferent to the matter, all stood up to express their opposition. Napoleon III of the French Empire and Joseph I of the Austro-Hungarian Empire were even more angry and said that they would take retaliatory actions. This time, even the countries in South America also expressed their opposition to Mexico's execution of the emperor. President Lincoln of the Northern United States of America and President Davis of the Southern Confederate States of America, and even famous people such as Hugo, Anderson, and Gary Potty, all wrote to Mexican President Benito Juárez, asking him not to execute Maximilian I, but they were all opposed by Juárez. At 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, June 28, 1867, the firing squad escorted Emperor Maximilian I and his two generals, Miguel Miramontes and Thomas Masilla, to be executed. Maximilian I wore a black uniform and wore the Order of the Golden Fleece, which the Habsburg family inherited from the Order of the Golden Fleece of the Duchy of Burgundy. After the priest presided over the Mass for Maximilian I, he was taken to the execution ground, the Croche Plateau in Querétaro, and then he was shot and killed. The news of Maximilian I's murder spread to Europe 10 days later. The Habsburg family was immersed in grief. Perhaps due to pressure, on July 18, 1867, about 20 days later, the body was transported back to Vienna, Austria. Joseph I stated that he would hold a state funeral in February next year and would eventually be buried in the Royal Cemetery in Vienna. However, Benito Juárez's shooting of Maximilian I completely distanced the world from him. Obviously, under the mourning and calm of Vienna, no one would think that the Austro-Hungarian Empire ruled by Joseph I would let it go, because this represented the first time that the Austro-Hungarian Empire faced challenges from other countries after its establishment. If it was Britain, France, Prussia, Russia, or even the Netherlands and Italy, they might think twice, but now the one who provoked them and didn't give them any face was a small Mexican president. A clown-like figure in front of Joseph I, who thought highly of himself, dared to kill his own brother. No one thought he could bear it, so they couldn't help but breathe quietly, waiting for the possible stormy revenge of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. However, before him, the French Empire took action. On July 25, 1867, the French Guiana fleet in South America bombarded the port of Coatzacoalcos in Mexico from the north. In just one day, the largest port terminal in Mexico was almost reduced to ruins. After that, the French army deployed in South America seemed to leave with a sense of relief. Surprisingly, the French had no excuse to occupy there, which was unexpected. In early August, the Austro-Hungarian Mediterranean fleet landed openly after bombarding Coatzacoalcos, which was bombarded by French warships. This time, the Austro-Hungarian landing troops exceeded 10,000. Although the Mexican army resisted for a while, one side came aggressively, and the other side seemed to have something wrong in their hearts, which actually allowed the Austro-Hungarian army to gain a foothold. However, unexpectedly, this Austro-Hungarian army did not choose to go north and attack Mexico City directly. Instead, it camped there and headed towards the port of Juchitán on the Pacific coast of southern Mexico. This place soon fell into the hands of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in mid-August. After that, with the 10,000 Austrian troops and 20,000 African vassal troops from the Austro-Hungarian colony of Nigeria transported here and landed in Coatzacoalcos, these 30,000 people did not advance to the north, but advanced eastward along the eastern coast. In addition, the Austrian troops in the south also marched southward along the Sierra Madre Mountains. So far, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has 40,000 troops in Mexico, occupying 1/6 of Mexico's territory, and all in the southernmost part. At this time, everyone realized that the Austro-Hungarian Empire actually chose to take southern Mexico in this way before counterattacking the north. Many people did not understand Joseph I's thoughts. Obviously, the north seemed unwilling to fight against the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but Joseph I did not pursue the victory. What was the reason? Only some people understood that Joseph I was preparing to play a long-term strategy, and it was carried out by occupying Mexican territory. This made many countries, such as the Lincoln government and the Davis government, very dissatisfied and wanted to stop it. However, now that they have just become brothers, neither of them is willing to touch the bad luck of Joseph I, who is angry now. On August 5, 1867, William IV convened the first Privy Council meeting after his funeral. At the meeting, Dutch Chief of Staff Mark Rudd said that there were more and more signs that the war with the Kingdom of Siam had entered the second stage and had already begun, and this time, the French Empire army might not be as polite as before and would launch a fierce attack. Thorbecke also agreed with this. Thorbecke said that these signs included the fact that the French Empire actually showed signs of resisting the sanctions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and most importantly, France actually resolutely chose to send troops from Mexico to the Far East. This was a French army of more than 50,000 veterans. Its investment would be crucial to the entire battlefield of the Kingdom of Siam, and it was even tantamount to the emergence of a heavyweight key factor. It was very likely that the balance of the battlefield would be more favorable to the French Empire. William IV approved of their judgment. He stated that from Sihanoukville, Kampong Speu, Kampong Janong, Kampong Cham, Stung Treng in the south, as well as Pax to Saravan in Laos, they were now all invaded by the French Empire on a large scale. Although Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam was still confident, with the full efforts of the French Empire, the fall of this middle line of defense between the eastern and western Cambodia of the Kingdom of Siam was only a matter of time in William IV's view. William IV said seriously, war generally consists of one to several battles. After the attack will be deformed and regrouped to prepare for a new offensive. The first stage of the war between the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam, from the beginning to the intervention of the Mexican French army, is no longer a local conflict. The French Empire is then making every effort to condense French resources from all over the world to support this front war. The more obvious result of France's war is the occupation of Phnom Penh, the core city in Cambodia, but in the siege of other cities, it was strongly resisted by the factors of the geographical advantages of the Kingdom of Siam. Chapter 305 The Netherlands must protect the Kingdom of Siam. With the support of the Netherlands and other European countries in their fight against a French invasion that harmed the interests of various countries, the army of the Kingdom of Siam also achieved good results. A considerable number of French troops were defeated, and even several middle-level commanders of the French army were killed. The most exciting thing is that in several wars, the French army and its vassal army lost 60,000 people, which was enough to subvert Europe's impression of the French Empire as a powerful country, and even strengthened the confidence of the Kingdom of Siam in resisting the invasion. This data news attracted attention from all parties, and under the hype of Europe, it even gave the outside world the illusion that the Kingdom of Siam was on the verge of victory. Ladies and gentlemen, but this is not the case. The results of the first phase of the Battle of the French Empire Army were not as expected. That was because the French Empire was too polite. It first looked down on the other small country in the Far East and thought that it was as easy to get as those indigenous countries in Africa. Therefore, the strategic deployment did not seem to be carried out. Second, the strong response of European countries made the French Empire somewhat tied up. The military strength of the two countries is not equal. Even if the Kingdom of Siam has achieved good results now, it will eventually suffer unless other European countries actually send troops to participate. After William IV finished speaking, the entire Privy Council began to quickly digest the content of William IV's words. Obviously, their king did not think that the Kingdom of Siam could ultimately withstand the invasion of the French Empire. In this case, the Netherlands needs to develop a countermeasure plan, otherwise, the Netherlands' years of investment in the Kingdom of Siam will be wasted. Your Majesty, should the sanctions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague be pushed forward again? The speaker was the Dutch Minister of Justice Ross. Yes, I agree with what Minister Ross said. Now the number of countries that have imposed sanctions on the French Empire has far exceeded even numbers. This has world influence, especially with the obvious joining of the United Kingdom. If we use this big killer again, then we will make France even more timid and difficult to proceed. This time it was the Minister of Education Ruud Bels. Obviously, as an educator, the famous attack seems to be a more suitable choice for him. As the two finished speaking, almost everyone looked at William IV. Obviously, most people think that it is more appropriate to increase the efforts in the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Everyone knows in their hearts that military conflict is impossible, unless one day, the Netherlands is far away from the French Empire. However, such an idea is just a thought. William IV understands their thoughts. Military conflict with France is definitely not something that can be done at the moment. It is not on the interests of the Netherlands. Obviously, Napoleon III knows this, so he unscrupulously conducted exercises on the border between the two countries to demonstrate to the Netherlands last time. Direct military conflict is impossible. Sanctions from the International Court of Justice in The Hague? But William IV said helplessly, I don't want to use it again, because too much is as bad as too little. If it is used too many times, its international deterrence will be weakened, and other countries will also be disgusted with the dominant position of the Netherlands. Therefore, I plan to temporarily leave the International Court of Justice in The Hague empty and be quiet for a while. Finance Minister Jan van Capel couldn't help asking, Your Majesty, in this case, how can we check and balance the French Empire? After all, we have just announced an agreement with the Kingdom of Siam to invest £1 million. If the Kingdom of Siam is gone all of a sudden, then the Netherlands may become an international laughingstock. Yes, the Kingdom of Siam, from a strategic point of view, is very important to the Far East policy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Therefore, the Kingdom of Siam, I think it cannot be lost. It is a good ally for the Netherlands' security and economic interests in the Far East. After the Chief of Naval Staff Joseph Carls and the Chief of Army Staff Job Hill looked at each other, the former said immediately, especially when facing the British and French empires on the Southeast Asian peninsula, if the two countries are allowed to nibble away at the Kingdom of Siam, then these two countries may turn their guns on the East Indies in the south, and even New Guinea Island and the Australian continent are all targets. This is not good for the Netherlands. I suggest that the military can make appropriate support to the other side. For example, in terms of armaments, the Netherlands can provide more Mauser rifles to the Kingdom of Siam to arm the Kingdom of Siam and consume France's military strength. William IV looked at the two of them, then at the Dutch Minister of Armaments Louis Bell next to him, connected the dots, and instantly understood that these guys were obviously pushing the latter suggestion, which was the key point. The military is indeed the best partner for collusion with arms suppliers. However, this is a chain of interests that exists in all countries in the world. It cannot be easily touched. Not to mention others, I also support it. After all, the financial resources of arms dealers plus the needs of the army are the rational supply and demand. What's more, the largest arms group in the Netherlands is the William Group, in which he is the largest shareholder, with a share of more than 35%. So if the Kingdom of Siam can buy more arms, he will also be one of the biggest beneficiaries. However, he is not prepared to regard this as the only means. As early as last year, he prepared several new means, and the power of these means, in fact, seems to be more peaceful, but it is not weaker than the legal sanctions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. So he gave a look to the Dutch Foreign Minister Hespet van. The latter said knowingly, "Everyone, in fact, I think we seem to have forgotten a person who is not here, but has a very significant influence." Who? Hespet van has always been William Ivy's puppet. Most of the time, he is the mouthpiece of William Ivy in the Privy Council. The exchange of glances between the two was seen by everyone else. However, looking at Prime Minister Thorbecke's expression, it is obvious that the three of them have communicated with each other, and this Privy Council meeting was just carried out under the effect of promulgation. For this reason, although it is not pleasant, it has to be admitted that the cooperation of the three has made the Privy Council more efficient, and there are fewer quarrels than in the previous period of His Majesty William II. Of course, this also proves one thing from the side, that is, the authority of King William IV has been confirmed by all members of the Privy Council, which is what William II lacked. Hespet van announced the answer, Baradari, Director General of the International Red Cross. It's time for the International Red Cross to play its role. William IV said, "War causes civilian casualties. I call it collateral damage of war, which refers to innocent civilians who are killed or injured by mistake without the intention of the military. Wars are happening frequently around the world, and the collateral damage has always been very high. Take the Prussian-Danish War as an example. Denmark paid more than 200,000 poor people for this. You should know that Denmark's population is only about 2 million, 1/10, which is very terrifying. In recent years, the Russian Empire has been involved in the Balkan Peninsula and the American Civil War. These are actually where the International Red Cross should work. Of course, the status of impartiality and neutrality is recognized internationally. In the war between the Kingdom of Siam and the French Empire, the casualties of civilians are obviously calculated based on the Kingdom of Siam. As an invader, the French Empire can be almost ignored. What do you think, if the compassionate International Red Cross joins in at this time, publishes the rescue and death data every day, and sends telegrams to newspapers and governments of various countries every day, then as the data changes, what changes will happen to this war? As William IV described, the scene seemed to come to the fore, and everyone present couldn't help but take a deep breath. The first person who couldn't help himself was the Navy Minister Jan Peter. He exclaimed, "The whole world will hate the French Empire to death." At that time, I'm afraid everyone in the world will associate the French Empire with the inhumane murderer king. Chapter 306, France cannot afford to lose, Siam cannot win, and Britain and the Netherlands cannot lose. 1867. The tenacious resistance of the Kingdom of Siam caused the French army to lose more than 60,000 troops in South Vietnam, which made the French people in the French Empire very angry. The streets of Paris were full of demonstrations. Moreover, there were two extremely different camps. One faction advocated stopping the war and demanded that the cabinet government formed by Prime Minister Olivier step down. Even further, they demanded that Napoleon II abdicate. Although the number of people was only 1/3 of the participants, their attitude was very firm. The other faction was the war faction, demanding that the French Empire must increase its troops to participate in the war in the Far East. In order to maintain the great glory of France, it must win this war. To this end, they mainly stabilized the country, supported Napoleon II's foreign policy, and even put pressure on the Olivier cabinet government to be more bold in foreign military operations. For this reason, they also used the examples of the Russian Empire in the Balkan Peninsula and the Eastern Black Sea. This faction accounted for more than 50%. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for countries to have hope in the short term that Paris would soften its position in the future, which was exactly what the outside world was worried about. As expected, on August 9, with a nod of Napoleon III, the French Empire officially launched the second phase of its offensive against the Kingdom of Siam, and it was no longer polite. Countries around the world provided a large amount of intelligence and weapons to the Kingdom of Siam, which caused the French Empire to suffer heavy losses and made the French Empire feel that its opponents were the anti-French countries in Europe and America rather than the Kingdom of Siam. However, this anger could not be vented on these European and American countries, but only on the Kingdom of Siam. It happened that at this time, Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam, because he withstood the attack of the French Empire, actually proposed to underestimate the strength of the French Empire when sending it to European countries, and explained the historical reasons for the war to various countries, and criticized the behavior of France and Napoleon III. This practice of disrespecting France's status as a great power that cannot be insulted was considered a provocation by the French. If the strength is not compared, a small country will only provoke a big country, which will only cause the big country to retaliate and cannot really reverse the situation. The angry French Empire will no longer be polite in selling. Therefore, the French Empire's fighting style in the second stage surprised the world, because it learned the lesson of losing 60,000 soldiers in the first battle. Following the practice of the Netherlands and Africa against Portugal, the French Empire actually chose the mode of artillery bombing to open the way. In the offensive all the way, the result of bombing major cities in large quantities was that the losses of the Kingdom of Siam increased sharply. Not only did the Kingdom of Siam suffer amazing military losses, but even the collateral damage to civilians would be seriously expanded. On August 10, 1867, Sihanoukville in the southern coastal area of the Cambodian region of the Kingdom of Siam was first captured. This city of about 100,000 people no longer had its original vitality. The whole town was covered with black charcoal marks, and corpses were everywhere. The cruelty of the war was revealed without any concealment at this moment, which was really tragic. Subsequently, the Laotian area of Pax to Saravan in the central anti-French front fell one after another. The remaining cities of Kampong Speu, Kampong Chanoang, Kampong Cham, and Stuntreng were also in danger. The victory of the French Empire made Paris cheer and Europe looked complicated. However, good fortune is interdependent, and things that seem to be beneficial may be harmful. This was the case when the Kingdom of Siam withstood the pressure before, and it is the same now for the French Empire. As countries pay more attention to the battle of the Kingdom of Siam being invaded by France, news collectors from various countries are coming in an endless stream. The French Empire's artillery bombardment of both military and civilians is indeed advancing rapidly, causing huge losses to the Kingdom of Siam's reserves, but is it really beneficial to the future of the French Empire in this battle? On August 12, 1867, a novel called The Ugly French appeared in the literary circles of Europe and the United States. It mainly describes the diplomats of the Governor-General's office of the French Empire, stationed in Southeast Asia. The book introduces them as self-righteous, arrogant, and unwilling to understand the customs and folkways of the host country. It represents the failure of the French Empire's diplomatic policy, and even extends the ugly French people who have been behaved by many French Empire diplomats overseas and in their own country. In the novel, it is believed that most French people are kind, but the successive French Empire governments are questionable. Let's not talk about the distant past. When the United States of America signed the Jay Treaty with Britain in 1895 at the end of the 18th century, the French Empire believed that the Treaty of the United States of America, to avoid continuing the war with Britain, was not in the interests of France. They were dissatisfied with the fact that the United States negotiated with Britain without the consent of France, which was a betrayal of the French Empire. The arrogant French Empire diplomats did not listen to the explanations of Charles Pinckney, Elbridge Gerry, and John Marshall, the American diplomats sent to Paris by the United States, so they directly refused the request for a meeting, which directly led to an extreme deterioration of relations between the two countries. Even though they agreed to meet in the end, they put forward conditions that angered the Americans. If they wanted to meet the Prime Minister, the United States would pay France enough huge compensation to repair the losses that France had suffered in helping the United States fight against Britain. This is the famous Kiss incident, and the three letters are the letters of the three American diplomats instead of their names. The novel is such an arrogant and unreasonable practice of France, which has lost the trust of European and American countries. This reason has made readers from all countries agree with this view. Afterwards, the novel ends by talking about the loss of Maximilian I's advantage caused by the evacuation of Mexico some time ago, which made the Habsburg family very dissatisfied. In addition, the current war in the Far East has caused European and American countries to join the ranks of sanctions against the French Empire. The author further shows that the French Empire is a typical example of the righteous being supported by many and the unrighteous being supported by few. Therefore, the author calls on the French Empire to face up to its own problems, improve its international outlook, withdraw from the Kingdom of Siam, and reconcile the deteriorating relations with the surrounding areas. This is the most urgent task for Napoleon III at present, not the territories of other people in the Far East. Many readers agree with this after reading it, so they are more interested in the following content. The author emphasizes that there are no winners in war. The French Empire seems to be under pressure to lose this war, and the Kingdom of Siam can't afford to lose its own territory. The members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague plus Britain, which are aimed at sanctions, can't lose. Chapter 307, Bismarck's Opinion. The author of The Ugly Frenchman emphasized that if the French Empire lost and was forced to withdraw from Cambodia, and even lost its last colony in the Far East, South Vietnam, it would be seen through by the world. Although it was known as the world's second most powerful military country, it turned out to be a paper tiger. Napoleon III's position would inevitably be challenged within France, and Prime Minister Oliver's position would be even more difficult to maintain. The international status of the French Empire would also decline. This is also the reason why Napoleon III and Olivia chose to go to war with the Kingdom of Siam in order to win. On the other hand, the Kingdom of Siam did not resist the invasion of the French Empire alone, but was backed by the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague plus Britain, especially the strong assistance of the Netherlands and Britain. After all, the Dutch East Indies, British Lower Burma and British Malay Islands in the far east of the two countries are one of the places closest to the Kingdom of Siam, and support is very convenient. So even if Rama IV intended to make concessions and ask for a ceasefire, Queen Victoria and William IV would probably not agree if they wanted to weaken the French Empire. Because both Britain and the Netherlands, whether in their colonies in the Far East or in Europe, have faced the threat of rapid economic and military development in recent years without France's major wars. Britain and the Netherlands have even fought in southern Africa, and then they also fought with other countries. France has settled down in Mexico, so France's silent development has made the two countries vigilant. This time, the pit of the Kingdom of Siam is a surprise for the two countries. Many people speculate that the reason why the sanctions were passed so quickly, especially the fact that Belgium and Portugal, Britain's allies in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, agreed to vote in favor so readily, and Britain also joined the sanctions outside the organization on its own initiative, has shown Britain's clear anti-French attitude, and the Netherlands, as the first country to promote it, is even more needless to say. Therefore, the idea that Britain and the Netherlands jointly promoted the weakening of the French Empire began to spread in Europe. The earliest news came from the newspapers in Prussia, and other countries carried it. In 1867, Bismarck, the Prime Minister of the Prussian Palace, published his views on the war between the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam in the country's newspaper Berlin Daily. This was the first time that the Prime Minister of a European country made a public statement on this issue. Therefore, it attracted the attention of various countries. Even the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam at that time launched a new and rapid assessment of this, speculating on the intentions of Bismarck, who had already won the title of Iron-Blooded Prime Minister of Prussia. In the Prussian newspaper, Prime Minister Bismarck introduced that as early as 1863, several years ago, Britain and India and the Netherlands and East India had secretly trained and accepted soldiers from the Kingdom of Siam to train in the two countries' territories, and military instructors from Britain and the Netherlands often went to Bangkok to train the army of the Kingdom of Siam on the spot. When the Kingdom of Siam was launched to the west by the South Vietnamese colony in the east of the French Empire, in addition to investing military aid materials, the two countries also provided accurate intelligence and logistical intelligence on the battlefield of the French Empire. The two countries even pushed the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague to be dragged into the water. Under the massive sanctions of more than a dozen countries, if Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam withdrew and let go halfway, it would be difficult to explain to these countries that helped them. Both Britain and the Netherlands did not want the war to end too early, because they wanted to use the war between the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam to once again, like the period of Napoleon I at the beginning of this century, to gather the forces of all European countries to support the Kingdom of Siam behind them and drag France down again. At the same time, through the war between France and Siam, they could evaluate the strength of the French Empire and test the performance of weapons exporting countries such as Britain and the Netherlands, as a reference for designing the next generation of firearms and cannons. Because both countries are countries with military-industrial complex systems, they occupy a large share of the national economy and are one of the main sources of profit for the products exported by Britain and the Netherlands. Even if Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke and British Prime Minister Disraeli wanted to cease fire as soon as possible, I am afraid that the arms dealers of the two countries would not agree. No matter what the result of the Franco-Siamese War is, Britain and the Netherlands will be big winners, and the countries E-sanctioned will win a small victory. As for Prussia, Tsarist Russia, Austria-Hungary and other countries, they will grow faster than France. Because of this, the possibility of Europe being divided into more fragmented, grouped and hierarchical groups will increase. Although the British and Dutch arms dealers made profits, the war also made the international status of King Rama IV of Siam and his son, Crown Prince Chulalongkorn, unforgettable to European countries, and even forgot that they were not Europeans but Asians. The international publicity of the two made them the subject of discussion and interviews in major newspapers in Europe and America recently, which greatly exposed the visibility of the Kingdom of Siam. Many people predicted that if the Kingdom of Siam was safe enough when it really ended, then the Kingdom of Siam would even become one of the headquarters of large European and American companies in Asia, and the economy would take off. If the two can continue to maintain this and make other European countries treat them kindly, then the French Empire will face increasing pressure. At that time, as long as they can judge the situation, weigh the overall situation, and make the most powerful decision for the Kingdom of Siam, in addition to joining the International Court of Justice in The Hague, they can continue to apply to join the South American Union, etc. Depending on the situation, the Kingdom of Siam will be able to avoid and stop the war, and will become a Far Eastern country with considerable influence in the world. William IV understood deeply that in the future, the Russo-Ukrainian War made all countries stand in their own camps, but in the final analysis, they all carried out the best and most beneficial foreign policy based on the interests of each country and its sovereignty. Many countries are like yes men, surrounding the hegemon America to impose various sanctions. It sounds good, but in fact it is the performance of those countries' sovereignty being castrated. For example, Japan, Germany, South Korea, Poland, etc. all have strong American garrisons. Except for France and Britain, other countries have been deprived of military power, the most important condition for the expression of their sovereignty. What is not chemical castration? What is even ridiculous is that these countries are still complacently showing how great the diplomatic achievement of the American garrison is, and they are showing it everywhere, as if they are afraid that others don't know it. Isn't this the performance of covering up one's shortcomings and showing it everywhere when people are guilty? Therefore, William IV deeply understood that small countries actually have a certain degree of servility, just like the weak will automatically seek to rely on the strong. The Netherlands is not strong enough now, so it was the time to pull Britain to participate in the sanctions. Although most of them are just pretending to be powerful, William IV prefers to describe it as borrowing their reputation. On August 14, 1867, the International Red Cross suddenly sent a telegram to various countries. On the telegram, a large amount of data and content appeared. After seeing it, the French people were very angry and panicked, because in the telegram, it was described in detail that France burned, killed, looted, and treated women and civilians unfriendly. The telegram immediately made France mutter that the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam was completely stigmatized. Invading other countries, hurting others, cruelly treating others, abusing others, and human French soldiers condemned by the world, etc. The image of the French was refreshed step by step. People's view of humanity has no bottom line. France officially became the object of criticism from various countries, and countries have isolated the French government and the French. The image of the International Red Cross was thus formally established, because in the report, they rescued 50,000 Siamese people, but the French army also opened fire on them, killing and wounding more than 200 people in the organization. A neutral international organization was also attacked, and it was difficult for France to gain the forgiveness of the world. Chapter 308. Another international organization attacks France. As the International Red Cross released relevant data, pointing directly to the exposure of the killings caused by the French Empire in the Far East, voices condemning the French Empire's inhumanity appeared all over the world, and the image of the French Empire suffered the greatest damage in history. Although the French Empire, from Emperor Napoleon II to Prime Minister Olivier to ordinary people, tried their best to refute that the tragedy was caused by the French Empire, and opposed that many of the data in this report were fabricated, many people believed it. Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom stood up and asked France to stop creating killings, reduce the continued occurrence of human deaths and tragedies, and make the French Empire a responsible country, not the opposite. The Queen's request was strong and reasonable, which made Britain immediately gain recognition from many international people, harvest a wave of image points, and further consolidate the positive image of Britain's great power status. William I of the Kingdom of Prussia also expressed his position to the powerful neighbor in the south. He called on Napoleon II to show the spirit of chivalry and make great power contributions to European peace. He said that as the largest land neighbor and largest trading partner of the French Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia would not easily impose sanctions on the French Empire. However, the Kingdom of Prussia can speak out for justice for those who are suffering. Therefore, he will continue to use the normal communication channels with the French Empire to influence the correction of the French Empire's foreign policy, hoping to make Prussia a neutral bridge of communication between the international community and the French Empire. Many people could not help but secretly curse Prussia's black belly. William I's operation obviously took advantage of the countries that confronted France in the international community. Prussia did not offend either side, and was obviously ready to profit from both sides. This is a typical case of you fight your own battles, and I will reap the benefits brought by the position of the neutral countries. Seeing this, even Alexander II of the Russian Empire, who had not expressed his position on this for a long time, joined William I and chose not to offend either side. These neutral countries have such an attitude, but other countries participating in the sanctions, although they want to learn from these two countries, since they have become the opposite of the French Empire, they borrowed the data this time to loudly lash out at the French Empire, and this time they did not hold back. Because the data published by the International Red Cross had attracted worldwide attention, when the Director General of the International Red Cross, Alberati, was about to hold a press conference on August 14, 1867, reporters from European newspapers and American newspapers flocked to participate actively. At the press conference in Amsterdam on that day, Director General Alberati called on the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam to start a one-week humanitarian ceasefire on the Catholic feast of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, August 15 every year, so that civilians could leave the conflict area safely and the International Red Cross and its global partner member states could deliver humanitarian aid to the conflict area without obstacles. In front of the statue White Dove of Peace surrounding the Red Cross at the headquarters of the International Red Cross in Amsterdam, General Alberati spoke to reporters that the International Red Cross was ready to send humanitarian aid teams to Phnom Penh, Takmao, Takeo, Sihanoukville, Kampong Speu, Kampong Chanoang, Kampong Cham, Stung Treng in Cambodia and Pax and Saravan in Laos, which were in the midst of war. The teams came from all over the world, including people from both the north and south of the United States, as well as peace-loving people from South American countries. He even arranged for each European country to have one member to participate in these activities on an equal basis according to their nationality, so as to more widely represent the international vision and voice. He said that this ceasefire should be a moment to unite to save lives and promote dialogue. Alberati said that the temporary humanitarian ceasefire will provide the necessary conditions for completing two major tasks, namely, the safe evacuation of all civilians willing to leave the conflict area under the coordination of the International Committee of the Red Cross. The temporary ceasefire will also make it possible for the International Red Cross and its business partners to safely deliver humanitarian assistance to civilians in the most severely attacked areas such as Phnom Penh and Sihanoukville. Alberati said that currently among the 8 million people in the Kingdom of Siam, 1 million people in the conflict areas of Cambodia and Laos need humanitarian assistance. It is expected that this number will double to 2 million by the end of August as the war continues. In the past few weeks, about 200,000 people have received assistance, including many people in the eastern war zone. I call on the French and Siamese to silence the sound of gunfire and artillery, and open a path to safety for many people who are at risk of direct threats. The International Red Cross will provide a broadly representative team. Therefore, this time, Napoleon II initially intended not to allow the International Red Cross to enter the areas of the Kingdom of Siam occupied by the French Empire, but the country attached great importance to clarifying the reputation of the French Empire. Therefore, when it was learned that Napoleon III was ready to reject Alberati's call, the voices from all parts of the French Empire to pressure Napoleon III to agree became louder and louder. Finally, Napoleon III reluctantly agreed to the request of the International Red Cross. He agreed to a one-week ceasefire starting on August 15, and would arrange for the International Red Cross to enter the war zone and participate in humanitarian activities in the next week. How do Napoleon III and Prime Minister Olivier of the French Empire understand the current situation of France? The world's most influential newspaper, Luxembourg's European Times, published an article saying that for Napoleon III, economic sanctions and attempts to isolate the French Empire were all part of the general offensive planned by the long-term opponents of the French Empire to weaken the French Empire, and were actions by other countries such as Britain and the Netherlands to maintain and seize their global dominance and enhance their interests. Napoleon III said that the French Empire was very friendly to the Kingdom of Siam, but they did not want to see the Kingdom of Siam fall into the hands of Britain and the Netherlands step by step, become their puppet, and become part of their strategic hegemony in the Far East. The French regarded the Kingdom of Siam as an equal partner of the French Empire. The reason why France did so was because the French Empire needed the Kingdom of Siam to be more independent in international sovereignty, rather than being restricted and remotely controlled by Britain and the Netherlands. Our great goal is to rescue them from the control of the two countries. Britain and the Netherlands used the Kingdom of Siam to be hostile to the French Empire for their own interests. The British and the Dutch did not intend to fight the French Empire directly, but they continued to provide the most advanced weapons to the Kingdom of Siam until all the Siamese were killed. Chapter 309 Napoleon III and the Situation of France. The European Times quoted Napoleon III as saying that it was inevitable for the French Empire to encounter difficulties. The newspaper explained that with the sanctions just taking effect, the most difficult ones would not appear until a few months later, which was related to the industry of the French Empire. In terms of military, Napoleon III said that in order to reduce casualties, the French Empire army, in addition to a large artillery bombardment, actually began to not want to rush forward. In particular, after the start of the second phase of the war, the French army was deployed according to plan, entering the western part of Cambodia and then retreating back to the central part, just to target the army of the Kingdom of Siam and destroy the military facilities and checkpoints of the Kingdom of Siam. The European Times reported that Napoleon III repeatedly reiterated that the Kingdom of Siam was ready to attack South Vietnam, the colony of the French Empire in the Far East. He said that the attack on Cambodia was to make South Vietnam safer and to rescue the Kingdom of Siam from the control of Britain and the Netherlands. In the current international community's request for the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam to negotiate an armistice, Napoleon III criticized the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the intervention of Britain, which made the Kingdom of Siam lack a friendly attitude. Napoleon III said that in terms of the conditions proposed in the negotiations with the Kingdom of Siam, he said that South Vietnam must be guaranteed not to be threatened by the Kingdom of Siam, so the French Empire must have certain vigilant troops in Cambodia and Laos. That is, he asked the Kingdom of Siam to allow the French Empire to deploy troops in the occupied eastern Cambodia, including Phnom Penh, and southern Laos. When asked by the European Times about the war crimes committed by the French Empire Army in this war in the Kingdom of Siam, Napoleon III denied it and asked in return, "Have you seen Britain's treatment of various ethnic groups in South Africa in Africa, eradicating the survival rights of people of various ethnic groups, and trying to provoke the American North-South War in North America, resulting in a civil war that lasted more than 6 years, and even joined the war in the end?" No one remembered the Indians who were killed by Britain in the early days of the British occupation of the Indian subcontinent and the Burmese who were killed by Britain in Lower Burma today. For Napoleon III, the data published by the International Red Cross regarding France's killing of Siamese in the Kingdom of Siam was false. He said it was comparable to the accusation that the Netherlands was carrying out genocide in the Far East, East India and Australia, and that the Dutch were supreme. Regarding the French Empire, Napoleon III strongly denied that the French Empire's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam was justified, and pointed out that this was France's attempt to counter the influence of Britain and the Netherlands. British Foreign Secretary Russell said that it was not yet possible to confirm whether the French Empire's statement was reasonable, but Britain should take seriously the condemnation of the French Empire's inhumane treatment of civilians. The European Times reported that Russell said that Britain is now integrating partners to discuss and want to understand what happened in the Far East. The newspaper also reported that on the 14th, Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke announced that the Netherlands would work with its allies to urgently investigate the French Empire's mass killing of civilians in the Far East. The Prime Minister stated that once the data of the International Red Cross is confirmed to be true, the conflict will inevitably escalate. He said that we will be ready to settle accounts with Napoleon III and Oliver's cabinet government together with Britain and other countries of international justice. However, The European Times said that although various declarations do not rule out any possibility, military retaliation seems unlikely, because countries including Britain and the Netherlands, which have become increasingly vocal recently, refuse to regard themselves as participants in the conflict with the French Empire. So far, the International Hague Court Organization, the South American Union and Britain have not formally proposed to directly involve themselves in the military conflict between the Kingdom of Siam and the French Empire. Even London and Amsterdam, which low-key met the weapons requirements of Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam, quickly ruled out responding to Rama IV's request for these countries to land to support the fight against the invasion of the French Empire. Therefore, even if the conflict between the French Empire and the Kingdom of Siam escalates to the level of full-scale warfare, the newspaper predicts that the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, led by Britain and the Netherlands, will only increase new sanctions against Paris. The newspaper quoted a European diplomat as saying that this may accelerate the blocking of the import of industrial raw materials from the French Empire, such as tropical rubber, steel, coal, etc., and even completely stop the import of industrial products from the French Empire, making the economy of the French Empire completely isolated from the European economy. So how are these countries going to deal with the French Empire further? Luxembourg's European Times quoted Mark Rude, the Dutch chief of staff in charge of the military, as saying that it is best for us to maintain a general attitude on how to retaliate against the French Empire. If more than half of the French Empire's troops are used to expedition to the Far East, then we regard this as an extermination move to fully occupy the Kingdom of Siam. If there are only a few 100,000, then we believe that this invasion is regional. If it remains below the current 100,000, then it may mean that the French Empire is ready to maintain its current territory. In either case, the rulers of the French Empire, whether it is Napoleon III or Prime Minister Olivier, should understand that other European countries may use all options. In addition, former British Prime Minister Clayton said that the Netherlands was right not to regard the number of French Empire's troops as a red line, because once you have determined the red line, once the other party crosses the red line, you do nothing, then your words are empty talk. Lincoln of the United States of America said that the actions of the French Empire have caused great damage. Although the United States does not deny the embarrassing position of Britain in North America mentioned by France, the United States of America also agrees with Britain's counter-effect in the Civil War. However, the president said that he is not going to continue to condemn Britain on this issue because the two countries have reached a reconciliation. This is just like the signing of the Jay Treaty between Britain and the United States in 1795, when the French Empire, which originally helped the United States to be independent from British rule, arrogantly condemned the United States, which made the whole of the United States uncomfortable. Therefore, President Lincoln stated that the United States would not easily impose sanctions on France, the United States partner for more than 100 years since its founding, but we would also stand on the side of international justice, become a part of the international community, and make our voice heard. To this end, the United States would cooperate with the International Red Cross to the best of its ability. Chapter 310, Warning from Prussia. 1867, King William IV of the Netherlands stated that as a member of the International Red Cross, the Dutch cabinet government urged the House of Representatives of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to pass a draft bill, which was intended to provide more than 2 million Dutch guilders, $400,000 equals 80,000 pounds, to the newly established Siamese Refugee Committee within the International Red Cross to help the International Red Cross to help refugees from the war in the Kingdom of Siam. At the same time, the king also stated that he would personally take out £10,000 from his pocket to fund the project together with the government. For a time, the actions of the Dutch king and his government were appreciated by countries around the world, and other countries followed suit. The Kingdom of the Netherlands even triggered a large wave of donations, which William IV could never have imagined. So starting from August 15, 1867, the Assumption Day, major Dutch financial groups and individuals began to make donations one after another. When the armistice ended a week later, the Netherlands donated more than £100,000. Together with the government and King William IV, nearly £200,000 were sent to the headquarters of the International Red Cross in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Director General El Baradei even held a press conference to express his gratitude to the whole country of the Netherlands for supporting the International Red Cross. He also thanked the Royal Palace of the Netherlands on behalf of the Kingdom of Siam. With the end of this press conference, This information was quickly transmitted around the world through the telegraph. William IV, the Dutch government, and the Dutch people have become the objects of friendship and peace-loving in the hearts of the people of the world, which makes the Dutch people in more than a dozen places hold their heads high when they go out, which is enviable. At the same time, there is no longer any ambiguity about the fact that the headquarters of the International Red Cross is located in Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands. After all, look at them. For charity, they donate £200,000 in 1 week. If you have the guts, try it in other countries. You know, now the most advanced steam-powered first-class battleship in the world only costs £200,000, and the previous sail-powered first-class battleship only costs £100,000. In other words, the Netherlands donated the purchase cost of a most advanced steam-powered first-class battleship to the Kingdom of Siam in 1 week. Is there a more direct friendly move than this? Did you see that the world's first superpower, Britain, followed the Netherlands in doing charity, but when the 1-week armistice ended on the 22nd, Britain only donated £100,000, of which £10,000 were from Queen Victoria, another £50,000 were from the British government, and the remaining £40,000 were private donations. It can be seen that Britain still makes a lot of noise but does little in charity. In addition to the United Kingdom, the largest donations this time include Prussia, £90,000, the United States of America, £80,000, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, £50,000, the United States of America, £40,000, the Russian Empire, £40,000, the Kingdom of Denmark and the Kingdom of Sweden, £30,000, and the most surprising thing is that the Kingdom of Belgium also donated £30,000, which is extremely surprising. It is said that many French people in Belgium also donated, obviously wanting to distance themselves from their support for the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. There were also donations of varying sizes from other places, and the larger amounts included Italy, Portugal, Greece, etc., with donations ranging from £10,000 to £20,000. Even in the French Empire, some people formed a French donation group and donated almost £20,000. When the 1-week armistice ended, the International Red Cross had received a total of more than £800,000 in donations from all over the world. This was the largest donation income since the establishment of the International Red Cross, and it also became the largest operating fund of the organization. For a time, the International Red Cross became famous and recognized by countries around the world. Its peace dove and Red Cross became symbols of peace and friendship. Many political leaders in various countries could not help but sigh that another organization founded by the Netherlands has successfully become an internationally influential organization with the ability to transform the world, and the Netherlands still firmly controls the dominant position, which has attracted envious eyes from various countries including Britain. William IV looked at the statements made by current and former politicians in various countries in the European Times, and secretly praised this international newspaper that he secretly promoted for becoming the #1 international influence. It has also become the mouthpiece of the Netherlands' greatest interest orientation. The intervention of the International Red Cross has indeed ruined the reputation of the French Empire, and has also given other countries more reasons to intervene in the invasion of the French Empire. I think that the French Empire will face more and more difficulties in the future. After all, the French Empire actually has many opponents and rivals, not just Britain and the Netherlands. Prussia and Austria-Hungary, who are lurking and developing, are even more dangerous. However, this is a good opportunity for me and the Netherlands who are familiar with the future trajectory. The French Empire's invasion of Siam will enter a stage of anticlimactic success, and it will be difficult to achieve great success. However, there are less than 3 years until 1870. If history is correct, in more than 2 years, Prussia, led by Bismarck and William I, will deliberately anger Napoleon III in 1870 after successfully integrating the resources and strength of other countries in the German Confederation. After that, with the purpose of revenge, they will reach the Palace of Versailles in Paris, France in one fell swoop, and the German Empire will be formally established and step onto the world stage. The European hegemony under France and above Germany means that Europe will reach a new balance point. After that, a 40-year period of peaceful development will come, but the Netherlands needs to maintain planning. Prussia Berlin. Prime Minister Bismarck looked at the Prussian cabinet government's report on the influence of the two major organizations established by the Netherlands, the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the International Red Cross, and looked at the above assessment of the potential and influence of these two organizations. Bismarck could not help but cast an admiring look to the west. He said to William I, "Sometimes I have to say with envy that William IV has a very good brain. The establishment of these two organizations is very suitable for the Netherlands." Seeing the puzzled look of Crown Prince Frederick, Bismarck explained, "Does the Crown Prince think that Prussia can also launch the same organization and gain the same influence on the Netherlands? Isn't it?" Crown Prince Frederick asked back. "Of course not," Bismarck sighed. "Prussia is too powerful, and so are Britain and France. The big countries are on guard against each other, and small countries are afraid of becoming the sphere of influence of the big countries and being annexed. I think many people will think of us when they look at us now. We have just merged with the German Confederation." Hearing this, Crown Prince Frederick was silent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311, Baladi's confrontation with Napoleon III. Prussia kicked Austria out and annexed other countries in the German Confederation. This simple and crude action caused the world to look at Prussia in a toolbox of danger and ambition. It is hard to imagine that other countries will obediently join the new organization founded by Prussia. They are all afraid that the organization they join will become the next German Confederation, and they will become the target of Prussia's annexation. Speaking of this, Bismarck praised, "Other major powers such as Britain are facing the same problem." William IV saw this clearly, so he launched these organizations one after another as a medium-sized power. Small countries joined in and twisted them into a rope with considerable strength, which made other major powers very worried. If everyone didn't know the power of these organizations before, after using them on the French Empire this time, at this moment, I think no one would not envy the influence of the Netherlands in these two organizations. They all want to take it for themselves. I think the greedy British will take action soon. William I's face changed, and he asked anxiously, "What the Prime Minister means is that Britain may take this opportunity to cooperate and sanction the French Empire and the Netherlands at the same time, and choose to approach the International Court of Justice in The Hague with the same position, and then choose to join it. If that is the case, William I believes that if Britain really joins, it will be very likely to overwhelm the influence of the Netherlands and become the dominant force of the organization. The influence of this organization was not taken seriously before, but now after this display of power, no major power dares to underestimate the other party. If it is used by Britain, then for Prussia, it will cause the gap with Britain to become even greater." So William I looked at Bismarck anxiously. Bismarck said solemnly, "If we were in the position of Queen Victoria of Britain, what would your Majesty think?" William I opened his mouth and had to admit that if he was the King of Britain, he would also take the opportunity to join the organization in order to control this huge force. William I said coldly, "No, we must prevent Britain from obtaining this power. Prussia does not have it, and Britain should not have it either." Bismarck and his men nodded when they heard this. Obviously, they did not want Britain to get these weapons and hurt Prussia. "Your Majesty means that Britain will choose to join the International Court of Justice in The Hague in the near future and try to control the International Red Cross?" Queen Alexandra asked incredulously. "Yes," William IV said with great certainty. "Britain is famous for its greed, and the display of these two forces has already attracted many ambitious people." Queen Alexandra looked at William IV worriedly. "William, will this make the Netherlands a ship on the cusp of the storm, and it is very likely to be squeezed by the big countries?" William IV looked at Alexandra in surprise. "Do you think that not only Britain will think so, but other countries will also think so?" Alexandra nodded in thought. "I think Prussia should also want to master this power." Alexandra has been under the guidance of William IV recently. She has begun to appear in William IV's office as the secretary of William IV, the King of the Netherlands, and even has a taste of the King's think tank. This was done deliberately by William IV. Women are careful. In the international political arena, facts and later generations have proved that women can still hold up half the sky. Women occupy many positions in the future prime ministers, presidents, cabinet ministers, etc. in Europe and America, and they do no worse than men. Among them, Merkel of Germany and Hillary of the United States are both internationally famous figures. Their advantages over men have been brought to the extreme. It is precisely because of this that William IV has the idea of cultivating female politicians. His grandmother, Queen Mother Anna, has passed away, and his mother Sophie followed his father William II to Greece to be the queen. The only person who is trustworthy is his wife, Queen Alexandra. Therefore, as a pioneer of female generals in Dutch politics, William IV chose Alexandra. As for how to push her up later, William IV has planned a plan, but it is not perfect yet. However, the Director General of the International Women's Association has greatly changed Alexandra's overall view, and the rest is the next experience. Alexandra, William, I think that when you asked me to found the International Union of Women's Associations, you must have had an ulterior motive. However, I think you must have a plan of your own. William IV, yes, but it is not the right time yet. Now that countries have ideas about the International Hague Court and the International Red Cross, we must take precautions. Alexandra, how to prevent it? William IV, of course there is a plan. British Empire, London. Queen Victoria and British Prime Minister Disraeli were also talking about these two organizations. Queen Victoria has inherited the British throne for 38 years. She has experienced the changes in Europe in the past 40 years. Therefore, the strange changes in Europe in the past decade have surprised her to find that they are different from the previous 30 years, especially the rapid rise of the Netherlands, which has made her unable to react until now. In just less than 10 years, the Netherlands has become a counterweight to European powers such as the French Empire. The ability of William IV forced Queen Victoria to explore step by step with caution. Now she regretted not insisting on the Anglo-Dutch marriage to make the relationship between the two countries closer and put the Netherlands under the British-European royal marriage network. Your Excellency Prime Minister Disraeli, no matter what, we should maintain our influence in these two organizations. Your Majesty, the Netherlands seems to be very cautious in this regard. Although we have hinted for many days that we want to join, we seem to be blocked. Even other countries such as Spain do not seem to want us to join alone. Queen Victoria frowned. Go on. Disraeli smiled bitterly. It seems that they have reached a consensus. If Britain wants to join, it must join with other major European powers, not just Britain alone. Queen Victoria, is it to check and balance us? Disraeli, that's right. You know, Britain is too strong. They are unwilling to accept Britain's dominant position in it and lose the ability of various countries in the organization to maintain themselves. Queen Victoria said dissatisfiedly, what you mean is that if Britain wants to join, it must wait until the major powers want to join before they can join together. That's about what they meant, but Disraeli saw the Queen's dissatisfied expression and replied helplessly, what they said is that they will not promote the joining of major powers. If Britain wants to join, we need to persuade other major powers to join together with Britain. Otherwise, they will not agree to a single major power joining. What kind of logic is this? We apply to join, and we still need to persuade others? Are they treating Britain as a tool? Queen Victoria was very dissatisfied. Disraeli sighed. This is the response from their countries. Queen Victoria heard this. Although dissatisfied, she had to admit that Britain must remain a gentleman, either continue to apply and coordinate with other major powers, or directly cut off the plan to join. In the end, the Queen compromised. I think Prussia, Austria-Hungary and the Russian Empire also have ideas. Let Russell's Ministry of Foreign Affairs start contacting them accordingly. The French Empire is facing it. Of course, more importantly, the leader of these two organizations, the Netherlands, must put some pressure when communicating. Doesn't the Netherlands care about the Kingdom of Siam? I think, let's start from here. Disraeli also agreed very much. Yes, Your Majesty. As the plan of the International Hague Court that Britain chose to join became more implemented, British diplomats began to travel back and forth between Prussia, Austria-Hungary, and the Russian Empire. When this news broke in the European Times, it seemed that other major powers such as the Ottoman Empire also sent envoys to Amsterdam, probably because they were afraid of being isolated. This made the French Empire government and Napoleon III very scared, because if these countries successfully joined the Hague International Court that is now sanctioning the French Empire, then perhaps these countries will face a bill to sanction France together. By then, the scope of sanctions faced by the French Empire will increase exponentially. The French Empire will also be further isolated by the international community. It is thought that with the joining of these big countries, the remaining small and medium-sized countries around the world that have not yet joined will be eager to move. There is no need to guess, and we know that they will definitely choose to join. Therefore, the French Empire sent delegations to various countries to lobby, trying to prevent them from joining the organization, but it seems that the effect is not good. This made Napoleon III and the French Empire government worried. The situation in European countries seemed to be developing in a direction that was more unfavorable to the French Empire. When Napoleon III and his Prime Minister Olivier were at a loss, it was at this time that William IV took action. A telegram from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, made them overjoyed. On August 23, 1867, the French government and the International Red Cross announced at the same time that Director General Elbaraty would visit Paris to meet with Napoleon III, and the Palace of Versailles had confirmed this. France's largest newspaper, Le Figaro, reported that Elbaraty's spokesman said on this day that Director General Elbaraty would also hold a working meeting and have lunch with French Prime Minister Olivier in Paris. The spokesman said that Elbaraty hopes to discuss with France how to bring peace to the Kingdom of Siam as soon as possible. In addition, Elbaraty is also in contact with the Kingdom of Siam in Bangkok to make arrangements for his visit to Bangkok. The report pointed out that on August 20, Director General Elbaraty wrote to Paris and Bangkok through the French Empire Embassy in the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam Embassy in the Netherlands, respectively, requesting to meet with Napoleon III and Rama IV of Siam. The Palace of Versailles previously said that since the French Empire launched military operations against the Kingdom of Siam, the International Red Cross has never tried to contact Napoleon III, so the Palace of Versailles is dissatisfied with this. Now that Napoleon III has changed his attitude, it is clear that the situation has changed. Chapter 312, The trip to Prussia was frustrated? The plan of Elbaraty, the Director General of the International Red Cross, to visit Paris and Bangkok shocked Europe and even the world. Paris arranged for Napoleon III to meet with him. Obviously, the French Empire has tacitly acknowledged the influence of the organization, which forced the world to admit that this organization founded by the Netherlands has unknowingly affected the international situation. However, just as they were calculating the pros and cons of this news, another piece of news was surprising. According to Luxembourg's European Times, the chief president of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, Ross, who is also the Minister of Justice of the Netherlands, hopes to use the organization's sanctions support to make up for the differences between the European powers and the organization on the issue of sanctions against the French Empire. From August 25 to early September, President Ross will visit Prussia, the Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, etc., and visit Britain, which has already imposed sanctions, to coordinate the sanctions. Dutch observers estimate that he will try to persuade these powers to jointly sanction the French Empire, or at least keep a distance from the French Empire, but observers in the regions where these powers are located have reported to the European Times that President Ross, also the Dutch Minister of Justice, has difficulty in changing the positions and attitudes of the relevant countries towards the French Empire. According to media reports from European countries, the Dutch Minister of Justice has fully launched the largest visit since the establishment of the organization. In addition to these major countries, he will also visit member states of the International Hague Court to consult with them on how to deal with the war actions of the French Empire, and even strengthen cooperation with them on the increasingly fierce Uruguayan dispute in South America. This will be his main task on this trip. The European Times reported that Ross hopes to use the organization's huge network and member state status to bridge the differences between the major powers and the organization on the issue of sanctions against Paris. Ross will hold dialogues with kings and presidents of various countries to ease their security concerns about the hostility of Paris and urge these major powers to more unitedly deal with Paris's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. He plans to discuss with these powers what specific economic and political concerns they have about being tough on the French Empire, and convey these concerns to the member states of the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the Netherlands. He is also prepared to introduce the latest developments in the war situation in the Kingdom of Siam to urge these countries to join the sanctions. However, Brown, chief researcher and director of European studies at the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, Europe's largest think tank, believes that it will be difficult for Ross to change the minds and positions of these powers. In an interview with the European Times, Brown pointed out that some European powers attach importance to the bilateral relations and military cooperation with the French Empire for many years. He has counted and found that so far, these major powers have only issued a few simple statements on the situation in the Kingdom of Siam, all of which named France. This has clearly shown that these major powers are not prepared to condemn the French Empire. He said, Despite facing international pressure, including moral pressure from Britain and many small and medium-sized countries, the major powers, except for the British Empire, the other 4 of the 6 major European countries other than France are unwilling to take the path of sanctions against the French Empire. Therefore, it is impossible to successfully force the French Empire to compromise by relying solely on British sanctions. Therefore, the participation of these archdukes is crucial to the success of the sanctions. Krim, director and senior researcher of the Australian Institute, another senior think tank in the Netherlands, said in an interview that the International Court of Justice in The Hague is currently the most powerful and influential international organization in Europe and the world. It is also a force that the major powers are afraid of. Of course, these member states are also important co-tenant partners and buffer states of the major powers. But now these member states are firmly on the side of fighting against the French Empire and opposing the French state, which makes it very difficult for the major powers. For the sake of the balance of the European powers, it seems unlikely that they will join this group. In the statement issued by President Ross after his visit to Berlin and meeting with William I on August 25, 1867, and in the joint statement issued by Ross and Bismarck, Ross was unable to persuade Prussia to join the sanctions, and Prussia did not even directly condemn the French Empire by name, which made Ross's first stop fail. Brown, director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, believes that President Ross of the International Hague Tribunal may at most persuade the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire among the major powers not to conduct military transactions with the French Empire. Because the military weapons of these 2 countries come from Britain and the Netherlands, there is not much demand for the French Empire. Ross hopes to use the huge influence of the members of the International Court of Justice to lobby some major powers, but the major powers have bilateral relations with the French Empire to varying degrees of closeness. For example, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is now facing the threat of Prussia. Spain has a deep relationship with the French Empire. Prussia is concerned about the reaction of the French Empire, and the Russian Empire needs France to track the threat of German unity. The situation in Europe is complicated and cannot be replaced by the International Hague Court in a short time. Brown said, some major powers consider weapons and political relations as the primary consideration. For example, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is currently trading weapons with France and is the 2nd largest importer of weapons for the French Empire, second only to Paraguay in South America. Spain, a member of the International Hague Court of Justice, is the 3rd largest importer. It is difficult to break this kind of dependence that has been established for decades or even hundreds of years. For these major powers, they may not be able to get political support from the International Hague Court of Justice to make themselves recognized, but at least they will not go to war because they offend the French Empire. In other words, joining the sanctions may offend France and cause war, but not joining will result in little retaliation. Brown, it's obvious what the cost is. The cost of offending the French Empire is too high. However, Krim, director and senior researcher of the Australian Institute, foresees that the French Empire's industry will face sanctions from other countries, although the hesitation of other major powers has given the French Empire some breathing space. But the French Empire has to admit that this has affected the French economic development. Many people even predict that the French Empire's economic development will stagnate this year, or even cause an economic recession. Politically, foreign relations will also cause an avalanche-like collapse, because morality has been destroyed, and the exported weapons will be affected by the demand for weapons in the war with the Kingdom of Siam. The French Empire's subsequent arms exports will be affected. However, Krim pointed out that the weapons, guns, and cannons purchased from France are all there, and it will take several years or even decades to switch to using weapons and equipment from other countries. Therefore, although some countries may reduce their dependence, this is a gradual process rather than a quick turnaround. Because of this, since this month, all countries have begun to realize that His Majesty has further reduced his dependence on the weapons of the French Empire. Since August, the Kingdom of Spain has announced that it will give up buying a first-class sailing battleship from the French Empire and choose the Netherlands to help them build a first-class steam battleship in Port Adelaide in the Far East. The reason is that they want the most advanced marine equipment. By then, everyone with a discerning eye will know that Spain is decoupling to prevent being restricted by the French Empire and distance itself from the French Empire. Even the Austro-Hungarian Empire showed the same intention. Therefore, many people are wondering what will be the gains of Ross, the Dutch Minister of Justice and President of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, after the setbacks in Prussia. Chapter 313 Rama IV, I want to meet Napoleon III. 1867, when El Baradari, the Director General of the International Red Cross with a Dutch background, met with Napoleon III, the Emperor of the French Empire, and negotiated with Prime Minister Olivier. What disgusted the French Empire was that Ross, the Minister of Justice of the Netherlands and the President of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, visited various countries to win over the countries to increase sanctions against the French Empire. This surprised all countries to find that the Netherlands was actually operating a policy of engagement and pressure testing at the same time, and it was successful? This was simply too surprising. All countries could not help but increase their solemnity when looking at the Netherlands. Obviously, the reason why the French Empire invaded the Kingdom of Siam this time was just a very common thing for France to invade other countries for hundreds or thousands of years, not to mention that it was far away from Europe, the world's most economically developed and industrially advanced region. Compared with Mexico, which the French Empire withdrew from some time ago, the Kingdom of Siam should be very common to European countries in terms of economic value and geographical location. After all, Britain intervened in the civil strife in the United States, not to mention a small country in the Far East, which shows that the status is too different. Such an invasion by a country should not have aroused the concern of European invasion. But now the Netherlands not only intervened in the invasion of the French Empire, but also launched a group attack mode, connecting a number of small and medium-sized countries together to collectively test the French Empire, making the French Empire feel uncomfortable like eating a fly. The British Empire, which has always been the offshore balancer of Europe, took the opportunity to join the sanctions against the French Empire to make up for the fact that the French Empire has been close to the British national strength due to foreign wars in recent years, and to prevent the French Empire from challenging the status of the strongest country in Britain. This has elevated the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam to a wrestling situation between the major European powers. The Kingdom of the Netherlands, as the initiator, was originally only a medium-sized power. In this Franco-Siamese invasion and anti-invasion war, it actually launched an invisible war, and from the beginning, it used the International Court of Justice in The Hague to make up for its shortcomings and counter the French Empire, which once shocked European and American countries. William IV and the Dutch government used the perfect goose flock attack to make the extremely powerful French Empire only able to parry. The Netherlands made Britain suffer a lot in the South African War, and the South African Dutch made the French Empire very afraid. Therefore, whether it was Napoleon III or other countries, although they believed that if the French Empire declared war on the Netherlands in anger, in a one-on-one situation, the final winner would definitely be the French Empire, but considering the cost, I believe Napoleon III and others also believed that everyone in Paris would think it was an easy victory, and the Franco-Dutch War would be very tragic, and might even affect the future destiny of the French Empire. After all, surrounded by powerful enemies such as Britain, Prussia, and Austria-Hungary, the war on the French mainland in Europe would be a domino effect. The surrounding Tiger and Wolf divisions would probably not miss any opportunity to replace the French Empire and take away the French Empire's position as the #1 power on the European continent. Therefore, when the French Empire could not attack militarily, it was caught off guard by the Dutch cultural attack, and Napoleon III and others could only respond in Paris. This has also caused the French Empire to be in a difficult situation at present, and at the same time made the Netherlands famous. The Netherlands' move to suppress the French Empire has caught the attention of various countries, regardless of the outcome. The Netherlands' international status has unknowingly risen to a level that can compete with the #1 power on the European continent. Therefore, various countries have involuntarily placed the Netherlands on a par with the 6 major European powers, the British Empire, the French Empire, the Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia, and the Ottoman Empire. The Netherlands has a population of tens of millions, and its European mainland is only a fraction of that of other countries. With such an identity, it has reached the point where it is on par with the major powers, which makes many small and medium-sized countries in Europe and the United States envious. The Dutch are proud wherever they go. Because of this, the Netherlands' road to advancement has officially stepped onto the first step of the competition stage of European powers. As for whether it can stand firm, it depends on the subsequent actions of William IV of the Netherlands and the Dutch government. On September 10, 1867, the French Empire invaded the Kingdom of Siam. It has been almost 9.5 months since November 1866. The French Empire has established a firm foothold in eastern Cambodia, and Sihanoukville, Kampong Speu, Kampong Cham, Krati, Longfa and other places in the south of the central region have fallen one after another. The battlefield has been steadily advanced by the French Empire to the line of Ko Kong, Kampong Janong, Kampong Tom, and Stung Treng in the west of the central region. But here, due to the complex mountainous terrain, the French Empire's advancement was difficult, so the pace began to slow down. Obviously, the French Empire was unwilling to lose too many troops here. Unlike most of the plains in Europe, the terrain here, coupled with the relatively hot weather in the past few months, was enough to hinder the advance of many French troops. If the war was stirred, it would be a torture for the French Empire. Therefore, the war between the two countries began to enter a period of relaxation. At this time, Ros, the Minister of Justice of the Dutch government and President of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, visited Bangkok for the first time. The French Empire even suspended all attacks when Ros landed. The moment Russell landed, he attracted the attention of the world. After all, during this period of time, the head of the International Court of Justice in The Hague has frequently appeared on the front pages of major European and American newspapers. Some people even said that he has appeared in newspapers of various countries more times this year than the Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke. His influence in international diplomacy even surpassed the Dutch Foreign Minister Huspert Van, who is in charge of diplomacy in the Netherlands. It has become a new flag of the Dutch diplomatic window. King Rama IV of the Kingdom of Siam even sent Crown Prince Chulalongkorn to land in Bangkok in person for a grand welcoming event. It can be seen how important the arrival of this world-class figure is to the Kingdom of Siam. Even this Minister of Justice, who was only a member of the Dutch cabinet, enjoyed a welcome ceremony at the level of the European cabinet prime minister. After all, Ross's other identity made the Kingdom of Siam pay more attention to it. Rama IV revealed that the Dutch Minister of Justice will be the highest-ranking Dutch official to visit the region since the outbreak of the war when he met Ros, the President of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Rama IV said that he would discuss with Ros the powerful and advanced weapons needed and the speed of delivering weapons to the Kingdom of Siam. He also said that once the weapons of the Netherlands and other European weapons supporting the Kingdom of Siam are in hand, if the training is in place, a counterattack will be launched immediately. It is not difficult to infer from these words that the Netherlands and members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague seem to be ready to provide the Kingdom of Siam with more important and advanced equipment and weapons systems. The United Kingdom even publicly stated that it would provide the Kingdom of Siam with British-specific war horses and consider providing the Kingdom of Siam with guns used by British active troops so that Bangkok can defend central Cambodia and Laos and weaken the French Empire as much as possible. When Rama IV met Ros, he publicly expressed the hope that members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, such as the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, would become the security guarantors of the Kingdom of Siam to ensure that the future security of the Kingdom of Siam would no longer be threatened. Rama IV also said that although he had proposed several negotiations with the French Empire to resolve the war, Paris seemed to think that negotiations would not help end the war conflict, but he still expressed his willingness to negotiate with the French Empire. But the premise was that the French Empire must withdraw from all Siamese territories, so that the two countries could have long-term peace. In response, Ros told Rama IV that countries supporting the Kingdom of Siam, including the Netherlands, were ready to assist the Kingdom of Siam in negotiations with the French Empire. Ros also said that countries, including members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the United Kingdom, had privately proposed to him that they would support the integrity of the Kingdom of Siam and that the French Empire could not occupy the territory of the Kingdom of Siam. Rama IV said that he and Ros discussed the difficult move of immediately evacuating civilians from the French-occupied areas in eastern and central Cambodia, and requested the necessary support of various countries to help evacuate civilians. Ros said that he would pressure Paris to cooperate with the Kingdom of Siam in this move. During the meeting between the two, the French Empire suspended its attack, which seemed to give the international community a glimmer of hope for peace. Chulalongkorn, the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Siam, said that the French Empire had previously attempted to capture the central region by land with the support of artillery bombardment and large-scale invasion, and then completed the breakthrough point that could expand the scope of entry. At that time, the French Empire could fully blossom in the west, south and north in the direction of the breakthrough. Therefore, the central region will be the key to the Kingdom of Siam's defense. If it is lost, the Kingdom of Siam may even lose the entire Cambodia and southern Laos. Therefore, it is vital to the Kingdom of Siam and cannot be lost. Chulalongkorn said that the Kingdom of Siam is currently defending the Tonle Sap Lake, the largest lake in the Cambodian region of the Kingdom of Siam, in Kampong Chanang, Persit and Kampong Tom. Strive to stop the French Empire here. The Kingdom of Siam has deployed more than 50,000 troops in this area. As long as this is blocked, the French Empire will face a needle tip, being pierced into the entire eastern Cambodia, and can counterattack the occupied areas in the east at any time, such as the largest city Phnom Penh. Rama IV told Ross that the French Empire's offensive had made some progress, which was good, but the Kingdom of Siam continued to resist stubbornly, especially in the central region of Cambodia. He showed the data that the morale of the French Empire's army was low, and it had lost its edge in the offensive, which might affect the combat effectiveness of the French Empire. Therefore, Rama IV told Ross that the Kingdom of Siam was confident in the next counterattack war, and hoped that the member states of the International Court of Justice in The Hague represented by Ross would continue to give more support to the Kingdom of Siam. Ross agreed, but hinted that the Kingdom of Siam should cooperate more with the Dutch diplomatic actions and diplomacy. In this regard, Rama IV naturally would not object. The two of them represented the interests of the two countries, and tacitly began to prepare for tomorrow's grand joint press conference. Chapter 314, There is no limit to the amount of arms we can sell. 1867, the Kingdom of Siam and the Dutch Minister of Justice and President of the International Court of Justice, Ross, held a joint press conference in Bangkok, where Rama IV, in front of reporters from newspapers around the world, seriously proposed the idea of meeting with Napoleon III as a victim to seek an end to the war. But he warned that if the civilians of the Kingdom of Siam besieged in eastern Cambodia were killed by the French Empire, and if the French Empire carried out any large-scale annexation in the occupied areas, the Kingdom of Siam would withdraw from the possibility of negotiations with the French Empire. Rama IV reiterated at the press conference in Bangkok that day that he was willing to meet directly with the great Napoleon III. He even suggested that Napoleon III could visit Bangkok to meet him. Rama IV even said with great sorrow that he was willing to go to Paris for talks under the condition of ensuring safety, but Ross, who was there, said that he was willing to provide a venue, such as Amsterdam, or Jakarta in East India in the Far East, Sydney or Melbourne in Australia, or even Darwin. Rama IV pondered for a moment, and naturally agreed to the proposal of the Dutch minister to meet with the head of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. He shouted to reporters from newspapers in various countries that the people of the Kingdom of Siam have shown on the battlefield that they are not afraid of the invading French army. Ross told reporters that he would push His Majesty the Kingdom of Siam to take advantage of any opportunity to negotiate with the French Empire until the end of the war. There are diplomatic and military ways, so any healthy and rational person will choose diplomacy because he knows that even if it is difficult, it is possible to avoid the loss of lives. Ross said emotionally at the press conference that he believed that the French Empire might have the possibility of all people participating in the war if Napoleon III lost his mind, but he did not want to believe that it would really do so. He warned with a slight threat that if that were the case, the Kingdom of Siam would get more help and more weapons, which would be absolutely crucial. Once all countries provide the Kingdom of Siam with enough advanced weapons, believe me, the Kingdom of Siam will be able to recapture more temporarily occupied territories. After hearing this, Rama IV immediately expressed his gratitude to Ross and the Netherlands and the member states of the International Court of Justice in The Hague behind him. The two of them also confirmed that the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the countries including the Netherlands will provide further economic assistance to the Kingdom of Siam within a week. After Ross, the British Governor-General of India, Sir John Laird Mayor Lawrence, also visited Bangkok. On behalf of Britain, he expressed support for the Kingdom of Siam's current actions to resist the invasion. He said that Britain would work with the International Organization of The Hague to provide security protection for the Kingdom of Siam and resolutely oppose the French Empire's invasion of the Kingdom of Siam in Southeast Asia. In addition, the Governor-General also said that Britain would send an officer to Bangkok to teach combat training to the Kingdom of Siam. In response, Rama IV naturally expressed his gratitude. However, some people are happy and some are unhappy. French Foreign Minister Edmond Drouin-Toulouse said in a public speech in Paris that the Great French Empire Army has entered the second phase of the military operation in the Kingdom of Siam. The first phase has already completed the control of the entire eastern part of Cambodia. The second phase goal is to fully control the entire central and southern parts of the Cambodian region of the Kingdom of Siam. At present, the eastern part of the central and southern parts has also been taken. He even pointed out the strategic significance of this. The French foreign minister said that the French Empire's next goal is to fully control the central and southern parts of Cambodia. The Kingdom of Siam controls the eastern part of the country and the eastern part of the central and southern parts. Edmond Drouin-Delou said that Paris knew the content of the meeting between Rama IV and Ross. He agreed with Rama IV's request not to kill civilians. He said, "The French army will build a corridor to the east of the Kingdom of Siam, so that these people can leave the east and the center and live where they want." The French Empire is even willing to send troops to protect him to the warring border area. He also said that if the southern coastal area is completely occupied, the French Empire will station the French Far East Navy fleet to effectively protect the army at sea. Obviously, this is intended to remind Britain, the Netherlands and other countries not to support the Kingdom of Siam from the sea. If the French Empire achieves this goal, the Kingdom of Siam will lose all its coastline in Cambodia. This is very critical to the war situation there. This is also the highest-level official statement made by the French Empire so far, and it is also one of the most specific explanations. It also shows that the French Empire will not slow down its offensive in the east and south of the Kingdom of Siam in the short term. It also shows that the French Empire is not affected by the visit of Ross, the Dutch Minister of Justice and President of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and even made its own goals public. It has to be said that a great power is a great power, and doing things can be summed up in one word: hanging. In response, Rama IV expressed dissatisfaction in Bangkok, saying that this exposed the great imperialism of the French Empire. Ross, who had already left Bangkok, the Kingdom of Siam, was asked about this in Jakarta, the Dutch East Indies. He said, "The invasion of the Kingdom of Siam by the French Empire is just the beginning, and it also intends to invade other countries." Even the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the French Empire's ambassador to the Netherlands that day and expressed deep concern about the chaotic words of Edmond Drouin-Delou, the French Empire's Minister of Foreign Affairs. For this reason, the Netherlands asked the countries that support the Kingdom of Siam to also summon the French ambassador to express their dissatisfaction. Other countries have also joined the Dutch team one after another. The British Foreign Ministry said that Britain firmly supports the Netherlands' approach and supports the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Siam. A senior official from a member state of the International Court of Justice in The Hague said that the coming weeks could be decisive, and that the French Empire might significantly increase its offensive against companies in the central part of the Kingdom of Siam. He said that the French diplomat's statement has eliminated the possibility of a French truce, and everyone has to admit that the French Empire's ambitions are far more than the current achievements. Their ambitions are even greater, so countries are preparing to impose more sanctions on the French Empire in order to support the Kingdom of Siam. At the same time, he also said that if possible, the Netherlands is willing to sell the most advanced weapons in service to the Kingdom of Siam at some point in the future. When asked whether the steam battleships that the Kingdom of Siam wanted most were included, the Dutch diplomat did not give a clear answer, but only said that the Netherlands would judge the nature of the arms sale based on the development of the situation, and said that everything is possible. Chapter 315, The Russian Crown Prince fell off his horse and died? 1867, when the world situation was changing, Prince George, the second son of Christian IX of Denmark, officially married Princess Helena, the fifth daughter of Queen Victoria of England. After the marriage with the Netherlands, the Danish royal family once again married a powerful country with influence in Europe, and the latter was the world-class British Empire. This made all countries look at Christian IX with envy. After all, with the marriage of the eldest daughter and the second son to the two influential characters in the world situation, Christian IX can finally be said to have a stable position. Even the German Confederation led by Prussia, at this moment, could not or dared not invade Denmark at will. After all, in that case, it would have to face the two major marriage objects of the Danish royal family. And don't forget that Christian IX is not just married to these two parties. He still has 4 children who are not married. Among them, Crown Prince Frederick, the eldest son of Christian IX, will be officially engaged to Princess Louise, the only daughter of Karl XVI of Sweden, next year, and it is agreed that the marriage will be completed in 1869. Princess Damag, the second daughter of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Crown Prince Nicholas Alexandrovich, the eldest son of Alexander II of the Russian Empire, will officially marry next year. If these two marriages are successfully completed in the next 1 or 2 years, then Denmark's 4 allies, except Prussia, will be its allies, and Denmark's position will be more stable at that time. Because of this, the Danes began to look forward to this day coming more quickly. However, sometimes, things are unpredictable, and there are many things that are too happy and sad. On September 20, 1867, Crown Prince Nicholas Alexandrovich of Alexander II died of meningitis after falling off his horse in St. Petersburg, and the European royal family was shocked. The Danish royal family, like the Russian royal family, was caught off guard. At the same time, because Crown Prince Nicholas Alexandrovich was married to Princess Damag, the second daughter of Christian IX of Denmark, such a fall made the position of the Princess of the Kingdom of Denmark very embarrassing. Princess Damag, who was born on November 26, 1847, will be 20 years old in 2 months. She originally planned to marry the Crown Prince at the beginning of next year. By then, she would be the Crown Princess of the Russian Empire and enjoy unlimited glory. But now the other party is gone, which makes the Danish marriage to the Russian Empire more strongly protected and fills the gap in the East, and it seems to be broken. A single move affects the whole body. Denmark's original alliance with the Russian Empire in the East seems to be shaken. Marriage is originally a relationship bond formed by European countries themselves to find more reasons to combine the interests of both parties. If this bond is suddenly gone, some things will not be so legitimate. For example, the Russian Empire intervened in Danish affairs, and Denmark asked the Russian Empire to help suppress the powerful Prussia. Therefore, all parties, including Bismarck, are watching the reactions of the Russian Empire in Denmark. Christian IX was also very nervous about this sudden situation. The eldest daughter, Princess Alexandra, had already married William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and even had grandchildren. This eldest daughter is very favored in the Netherlands now. William IV even let his eldest daughter take charge of a major international organization, the International Women's League, which made Christian IX very envious. You know, this is a transnational organization. Look at the achievements of the other 2 organizations established by the Netherlands today, the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the International Red Cross. He and most Europeans would not think that this organization, which was first established by William IV, has almost attracted the participation of most countries in the world and is welcomed by women from both the upper and lower classes in the world. Does the Netherlands have no ambition? No one can guess what William IV had in mind when he established it, and no one can guess how the Netherlands will use it. However, seeing the role of the 2 major organizations established later and stirring up the world situation today, no one would think that its role is just a role for women to talk about now. If the eldest son, Crown Prince Frederick, marries, the alliance with Sweden will be more solid. The original marriage with the Russian Empire made Denmark worry-free, but now it has come to this, but it makes him a little overwhelmed. Therefore, in addition to comforting the second daughter, Princess Damag, they could only wait for the result helplessly. Princess Damag was naturally very sad. After the death of her fiancé, Damag was heartbroken. Damag was so heartbroken that her relatives were very worried about her physical condition. The marriage confirmed in these years made her very involved in all the affairs of the Tsarist Russian Empire. She became very attached to the Tsarist Russian Empire. She even had correspondence with her fiancé's parents. Those letters were all praise and affirmation of her by Alexander II and his wife. This made her look forward to the future. But now everything has become nothingness. How can she accept it easily? It was under such circumstances that Christian IX and his wife of Denmark arranged for their daughter to visit Amsterdam to go to their own sister, Queen Alexandra of the Netherlands, to relax in order to help their daughter get out of this sad relationship. Now, she is pretending to be quiet and amusing her nephew Albert and niece Anna. William IV and Alexandra looked at each other, and the latter sighed helplessly. Alexandra said, "Damag, this is something that no one wants to happen. There are some things that even God cannot stop. What should be let go, must be let go after all." Damag raised her head. Although her beautiful face was pretending to be indifferent, her eyes seemed to be slightly red, revealing that her heart was still sad. "Alexandra, you know, my relationship with him has been going on since 1864. I have exchanged letters with him at least once a week, and there has never been a break. I have invested a lot of emotions, but at this moment, everything has collapsed and is gone. How can I accept this easily?" Alexandra felt a little empathy when she heard this. If it were her, she would do the same. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but look at her husband, William IV. Suddenly, she was stunned, because she didn't see William IV's sadness, but she saw a trace of William IV's eyes that were only shining and hot when he was in political calculations. What time is it? And he is still thinking about international political calculations. Therefore, she was somewhat dissatisfied in her heart, so she gave William IV a dissatisfied look. Seeing this, William IV shrugged slightly. There was no way. Just now, a memory appeared in his memory, that is, about the future of Damag. The sister-in-law in front of him did have such an experience in history, and almost missed the Russian Empire. Chapter 316. Without the right to public opinion, one will be besieged on all sides. But what is unexpected is that she unexpectedly became the crown princess of the Russian royal family in the future. It turns out that history records that Damag would write letters to Alexander II to comfort them because of the death of her fiancé, and even because of this, she became closer to Alexander II and his wife and their other children. In the end, she received a letter from Alexander II, in which the emperor tried to comfort the sad girl. In the letter, Alexander II even said to Damag very distressedly that he still hoped that she could become a member of his family. After October 1867, when Alexander II's second son, Prince Alexander Alexandrovich, became the crown prince, Damag, with the support of Alexander II and his wife, personally went to Denmark to express his love for Damag and Christian IX, and took out a letter from Damag's former fiancé Nicholas, expressing the hope that this marriage would be inherited by her younger brother, Prince Alexander. Finally, in 1868, the marriage between Denmark and the Russian Empire was completed. It was the appearance of this memory that almost made William IV lose consciousness just now. Afterwards, he planned the gains and losses of the Netherlands in his mind, and used these to calculate the interests of the parties involved in the incident and the surrounding parties affected. That's why Alexandra saw this scene. But there are mistakes. Looking at the absent-minded look of his sister-in-law now, William IV is still quite distressed. It can be said that he watched Damag grow up. When she was studying in Denmark after 1857, she was only 10 years old. Now 10 years have passed, and the little girl has grown into a big girl, and the immaturity has faded, and maturity has come. This made William IV sigh that he had been in this world for 10 years, and at the same time deepening and sinking. The relationship between Damag and himself is like that of a brother and sister. If it weren't for the other party's age, he would have even wanted to introduce her to his younger brother Frederick, but it was a pity that there was a few years difference. Damag, Alexandra is right. Things have happened. It's useless to think about it now. People seek survival in the future, not in the past. Therefore, you should cheer up. Look at your two nephews. They know nothing, but they are happier than knowing everything. So forget about them, maybe your future will be happier. Seeing that Damag was hesitant to speak, William IV hesitated for a moment, and then said helplessly, I know you are very interested in the Russian Empire and are very friendly to their royal family. I think they are also very sad during this period. I think you might as well exchange letters with them and complain to each other. This way, you can offset everyone's embarrassment, and it can be regarded as a kind of venting. Ignoring Alexandra's dissatisfaction, William IV just shook his head and signaled her to stay calm. Seeing this, Alexandra saw that her husband was like this, thinking that there must be a deep meaning. In the end, she did not stop this action of rubbing salt into Damag's wound. Damar looked at William IV in surprise, not understanding why he did this. But when she thought about the sadness of the family now, she felt the same way. So, in the end, she agreed. She wanted to relieve the sadness of the family. This was what she could do for her deceased fiancé. Not long after, she hurriedly left the two and returned to the residence that Alexandra arranged for her. As Damar left, Alexandra hurriedly asked, William, you are crazy. You know how to do this, but there is a cycle that makes Damar deeply trapped. How can you pull it out? William IV looked at his wife with bright eyes, but did not answer directly. It is said that Alexander II and his wife love Damar very much. What if they love her? Now that Damar's fiancé is gone, she can't become their daughter-in-law. So what's the use of loving her? Alexandra said. Who said it's useless? Did you notice that Damag is also very attached to the Russian Empire? If we don't guide her, it is very likely that she will be lonely all her life. You know, when the relationship reaches that level, She will do such things. I don't want my sister-in-law to become a nun, and she will be unmarried all her life. Alexandra opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. In the end, she agreed with William IV. Perhaps, chatting in the form of letters could help Damig to untie the knot of pain. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh for his sister. However, she didn't notice that William IV next to him had a gleam in his eyes and began to calculate something. The fact that Damig's sister-in-law lost her fiancé made William IV calculate, but the international situation also made him start to calculate carefully. With his calculations, the French Empire unexpectedly fell into his calculated trap and fell into it and couldn't extricate itself. The Netherlands even became famous because of this battle, and the two major organizations it led became even more famous. This made William IV love the French Empire even more. To be honest, he was very grateful to Napoleon III. If it weren't for his independent approach, which gave William IV an opportunity to take advantage of, many things might not have the current results. Therefore, calculating the matter itself and the people involved in the matter is the fundamental thing. Many people don't understand why the Netherlands has achieved such a great success this time. The Hague Court is certainly one aspect, but William IV pays more attention to other things. William IV attaches importance to the control of public opinion, which is not available in this era, and it is also not seen or valued in the European battlefield and diplomacy at this time. The weakness of the French Empire in terms of public opinion is that quality control, logic and facts are out of touch, and it is often difficult to justify itself. This allowed William IV's Kingdom of the Netherlands to take advantage of the situation, find logical weaknesses, and carry out precise strikes. In such a one-sided public opinion war, the French Empire has lost support internationally, which has led to the current situation. In the view of William IV, war and public opinion have never been separated, and wars that lose effective discourse power often have no chance of winning. There is a saying in the historical illusions of my motherland and my previous life, being surrounded by Chu songs on all sides. It says that the overlord of Chu, Xiongyu, was ambushed from all sides by the troops led by Han Xin. At night, the enemy soldiers sang songs about the hometown of Chu, which made Xiongyu's soldiers demoralized and lost their fighting spirit. This shows the efficiency of the public opinion war. Chapter 317 The Dragon's Rise must be in the Far East. This time, the French Empire launched an invasion of the Kingdom of Siam. In fact, in European history, this is a very common thing, especially for the top leaders. But the lower levels don't think so. Wars are launched by the upper levels. The lower levels are guided by public opinion and bound by national justice. In the end, they complete the sense of pride. But in the process, to be honest, the lower levels don't understand and only see the results. Therefore, when William IV saw through this principle, he chose to use newspapers to magnify the Kingdom of Siam and the invasion of the Kingdom of Siam by the French Empire, which caused social unrest. Civilians were killed, the invasion of the French Empire was cruel, and the ambition of the French Empire damaged the interests of various countries. Finally, the mentality of hatred of France was compiled in various countries. The anger of the lower level eventually rose to the upper level, so under pressure, the top leaders of various countries could only join the Dutch team, put the rope prepared by the Netherlands around their necks, and gave the other end to the Netherlands, which was remotely controlled by the Netherlands to impose sanctions on the French Empire. It is easier said than done. Anyway, this is the result of William IV's repeated calculations. And the several major organizations originally established are even more powerful on it. In short, this time the French Empire was indirectly confronted by the Netherlands before the Franco-Prussian War launched by Prussia in the future. Although it was not as strong as the future Bismarck and William I led Prussia to directly crush the French Empire led by Napoleon III, it also created the current Netherlands, forcefully opened the door to the European power club and squeezed in. Although it was still a bit unjustifiable, it had already entered, right? As for the future, if the Netherlands does not want to be driven out, it will depend on hard power. However, William IV placed his hopes on the development of the Far East. As long as it develops there, these great powers will have to recognize the status of the Netherlands, whether they recognize it or not. This time, the French Empire launched a war of public opinion to invade the Kingdom of Siam. Its characteristics and effects are worth William IV's evaluation. At the beginning of the war, the French Empire continued to station troops and conduct exercises between the Kingdom of Siam and the border of South Vietnam, the Far East colony of the French Empire. The tone of public opinion before the war did not seem to be very high. At that time, the Civil War in North America and the participation of Britain were far from comparable to the Far East, let alone the wars in the Balkan Peninsula, which made it difficult for the international community and the people of the French Empire to judge the true intentions of Napoleon III. Many people believe that Napoleon III just saw that the expansion of the Netherlands and Britain in the Far East was too fast, so he hurried to declare his presence. Now it seems that Napoleon III was not well prepared before the war. He misjudged the entire strategic situation during the period, that is, he thought he had a sure victory. He thought that once the French Empire army advanced, while other countries focused their energy on the European and American continents and had no time to take care of other things, he suddenly launched a surprise attack, creating a fait accompli in one fell swoop, so that Britain, the Netherlands and other countries could not stop it and complete the established tasks. But he never expected that the Kingdom of Siam was not knocked down by one blow, and there would be no fierce and effective resistance and fighting. In addition, the French Empire's previous foreign wars in history were supported by the arrogant French. So this time Napoleon III also thought that there was no disorder in how much public opinion preparation was made before the war. It was not until before the war that Napoleon III of the French Empire issued a statement and found an excuse to say that the Kingdom of Siam threatened the security and rule of South Vietnam, so the French Empire needed to send troops, with the goal of demilitarizing the Kingdom of Siam and no longer being able to threaten the French Empire's rule in South Vietnam. Although the French Empire took several cities in the east at the beginning of the raid, it encountered strong resistance in other places. The French Empire suffered heavy losses. Thousands of lives were left in the Far East forever. This made the French Empire the object of ridicule in the international community, and its image changed from being tall and majestic to being an ugly duckling. William IV analyzed Napoleon II's rhetoric. Invading the sovereign state of the Kingdom of Siam was decorated as the Kingdom of Siam threatened France's rule in South Vietnam. Therefore, France needed to start a war to eliminate this threat from the Kingdom of Siam and make France feel at ease. Even a 3-year-old child did not believe this reason. After all, it would be incredible for an 18-year-old adult to say that he was threatened by a 5-year-old child. The French Empire could not produce specific evidence that the Kingdom of Siam invaded them, which was equivalent to a thief crying "Stop thief." This practice has touched upon the definition of threats in various countries around the world, which has made the rulers of various countries very dissatisfied. In addition, the people of various countries were annoyed by the cruel and ruthless killing of civilians by the French Empire during the invasion, so they also participated in the anti-French action. Therefore, after the war between France and the Kingdom of Siam broke out, it is understandable that newspapers in various countries began to almost unanimously oppose the invasion of France. Although the French Empire later reacted and wanted newspapers from various countries to help it with official propaganda to help improve its image. But how could William IV do as it wished at this time? So the Dutch government ordered a ban on official propaganda by the French Empire in the Netherlands, and other countries followed suit and participated in this action launched by the Netherlands. As a result, the image of the French Empire plummeted. As for international exchanges, although the French Empire denied the offense of the French Empire's massacre of civilians in the Kingdom of Siam, it accused the members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom and other countries of a conspiracy. France also quibbled and played word games, arbitrarily accusing everywhere and talking nonsense. Unfortunately, there was no evidence and facts to support the accusation. In addition, the blocking of France's debate channels by various countries made them more and more muddy. The top leaders and people of various countries were even more disgusted. At this point, William IV knew that the overall situation was set and the French Empire could no longer escape the trap he set. In history, the French Empire and Germany were the most tragic empires in history. Every time they wanted to truly rise, they were defeated by the joint efforts of Britain and the Russian Empire. This was the case with Napoleon III, William II in World War I, and the mustache in World War II. The historical microcosm of the Austrian Empire is the future fate of the two countries. Therefore, the strength in the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century was just a flash in the pan. By the second half of the 20th century, they had actually become the followers of the two superpowers, and by the beginning of the 21st century, they had become the so-called first-class powers outside of the 2.5 superpowers. Until William IV traveled through time, The so-called European Troika was surpassed and approached by several other emerging powers, and the status of a first-class power was in jeopardy. Knowing this, William was so determined to implement a path of moving the Dutch to the Far East. Without the Far East, the Netherlands can't compete with Britain, France, Germany, or even Sweden, Spain, etc. in Europe. As the birthplace of the Netherlands, the Far East is imperative. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318, Tribe on the Arabian Peninsula. Riyadh is located in the eastern part of the Kingdom of Najd on the Arabian Peninsula. It is close to the British colony of Qatar Peninsula in the east and the Dutch colony of the United Arab Emirates in the southeast. To the south is the Oman region occupied by the French Empire, Spain and Portugal. To the southwest is Yemen. The east was sold to Italy by Constantinople, and the west was taken by Britain. To the west is the Ottoman Empire in the Red Sea region, and the Iraqi region in the north also belongs to the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, the Kingdom of Najd is surrounded by these countries. Mohammed bin Rashid looked at the Arabian Peninsula on the map, his eyes full of fiery anger. As the chief of the Sharma tribe and the ruler of the Kingdom of Najd, he thought of more. In 1750, the pioneer chief of the Kingdom of Najd, Muhammad Saud, announced his independence from the Ottoman Empire and established an emirate. After that, the leaders of the Saudi family successively conquered Najd, occupied Riyadh, annexed Kuwait and Karbala ruled by the Ottoman Empire, annexed Hassa, conquered the Buaid and Medina, seized the entire Hejaz region from the Ottoman Empire, and established the first Wahhabi dynasty ruled by the Saudi family in 1811. However, 7 years later, the Egyptian provincial army sent by the Ottoman Sultan razed the capital of the Emirate of Etzer, Diriyah. The Saudi family was forced to flee to Kuwait and coastal towns in the Persian Gulf. In 1824, the Saudi family made a comeback, and Turkey, the grandson of Muhammad Saud, seized Riyadh and established the Second Saudi Emirate. Shortly after Turkey's eldest son succeeded to the throne in 1834, the Ottoman Empire took advantage of his weakness and launched a war. The king was captured and exiled to Egypt, and the country was destroyed. In 1843, the Ottoman Empire was in serious internal conflict and had no time to care about other things. King Faisal fled back to Riyadh from Egypt, regrouped, and resumed his rule over the Central Arabian Peninsula in 1845. By this time, the Ottoman Empire had become weak, especially the northern part of the Ottoman Empire. The Russian Empire rose rapidly, and repeatedly attacked the south from the Caucasus and the Balkan Peninsula, causing great trouble to the Ottoman Empire. Among them, the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856 reached its peak. The Ottoman Empire was unable to deal with the powerful Russian Empire alone, and chose to support Britain's colonial status in Egypt. At the same time, in order to avoid chaos in the north and the south, Constantinople also negotiated with Faisal for the first time, and finally recognized Faisal's status as the Saudi Emirate. However, it also required the Saudi Emirate to recognize that they were surrounded by the territory of the Ottoman Empire, and the two sides finally reached an agreement for this. In 1865, after Faisal's death, his many sons fought for power, leading to continuous civil war. So the chief of the Shamar tribe in the eastern region, Mohammed bin Rashid, took the opportunity to invade. Although he was repelled, he also occupied many places, including Riyadh. The Second Saudi Emirate was destroyed. Faisal's youngest son, Abdul Rahman, led the remnants of Saudi Arabia to flee to Kuwait, seeking the protection of the Ottoman Empire and restoring the country's name to the Kingdom of Najd. Originally, he wanted to gradually erode the ruling status of the princes of the Saudi Emirate, and then slowly erode more areas of the Ottoman Empire on the Arabian Peninsula. However, some time ago, under the coercion of various countries, the Ottoman Empire actually sold various areas in the southeast to major European powers, which made Mohammed bin Rashid very angry and helpless. His ability was not enough to launch an attack on a European power, and he could not even compare with the Ottoman Empire, not to mention that the Kingdom of Najd had not yet been unified, let alone other things. In his heart, he was more uneasy. He suspected that the Ottoman Empire's slow and steady policy was to wait for the successful negotiation of a ceasefire with the Russian Empire on the Balkan Peninsula and the cessation of the war in the Caucasus, so that it might help Abdul Rahman to encircle and annihilate him. He was even vaguely uneasy, fearing that the Ottoman Empire would sell so much territory to European countries in order to get them to help jointly annihilate them in the south and east. After all, on the Arabian Peninsula, his Sharma tribe had occupied the entire southern part of the Kingdom of Nejd, and the Saudi Emirate had retreated to the north. Under the confrontation between the north and the south, Sharma could have expanded to the surrounding areas and even occupied the Qatar Peninsula, Yemen and Oman of the Ottoman Empire, thus opening up their sea access. However, now, except for the north-south division of the Hassa region, the rest of their Kama tribe has no seaside territory. Therefore, South Hassa became the largest port of the Kama family, and Daman city became the largest city of the Kama tribe besides Riyadh. The eastern part of Daman and Riyadh used to be the Qatar Peninsula, which was weakly guarded by the Ottoman Empire. We, the Kama tribe, had the opportunity to seize it. The same was true for the UAE region in the south, but now it has become a colony of the emerging European powers, the Kingdom of Prussia and the Netherlands. It is difficult for us to follow the previous plan now. What should we do? The one who spoke was Chief Rashid. Next to him was his only subordinate, Daud, who led the Kama tribe to rise step by step with Rashid and even saved Rashid. Therefore, Rashid thought highly of him. At the same time, Daud was also his important think tank. Over the years, every time Daud offered advice, he was shocked and inexplicably surprised. Every time he followed it, he would gain something. It can be said that if he contributed the most to the growth of the Kama tribe, then Daud was the second greatest contributor. Although sometimes Rashid was afraid that the other party would be too successful, Daud knew how to advance and retreat. He seemed to understand that he should retire after achieving success. He seemed to try his best to avoid being in the limelight, which made Rashid, the chief of the Kama tribe, very satisfied. Therefore, he valued him more and more. Just like now, there was only Daud around him who planned with him the analysis of the situation in the Arabian Peninsula and sought to expand the interests. Ask him for advice. Daud wore an Arab hat and the same clothes, but his status was different and his clothes were different from Rashid's. However, this person's eyes were very bright, and people could tell at a glance that he was a wise man. He was between 35 and 40 years old, which was the prime age of vigor and vitality. Daud seemed to have guessed that he would be asked, so he said slowly, "Chief, for now, we only have two choices." Rashid looked at Daud, waiting for his explanation. Daud said, "The first is that it is better to stay still than to move. Let's wait and see what happens. We wait for them to make a move and seek a way out. But the disadvantage of this option is that it seems like we are just sitting there waiting to die, which is very uncomfortable." Daud knew in his heart that this plan would be rejected, because it was inconsistent with the character of the patriarch Rashid. The patriarch was well known for his destiny being in my own hands. He would not sit and wait for others to give him living space. Otherwise, he would not have chosen to attack when he saw the weakness of the Saudi Emirate, an ally in the fight against the Ottoman Empire. He succeeded in occupying the southern part of the Kingdom of Nejd. Sure enough, Rashid shook his head and said, "We will not choose this, because it is more spectacular to die in the battlefield than to wait quietly for death. At least in that way we have tried our best and die without regrets. You tell me the second one, I am a little curious about it." Daud nodded in response, and Daud said surprisingly, "Since the patriarch does not want to wait, then we have no choice but to struggle. The Kama tribe has reached a bottleneck and needs to remove the shackles on the top. It took decades and hundreds of years for the Saudi Emirate to be recognized by the Ottoman Empire under the right time and place, and the Kama tribe has risen in too short a time. I think if we want to quickly achieve the status of the Saudi Emirate and the patriarch becomes king, then we need to put pressure on the Ottoman Empire." "King, Emirate?" Rashid was shocked, his eyes shone fiercely, and his ambition was revealed. Daud seemed to have ignored Rashid's misbehavior and nodded, "Yes, I think that the Kama tribe is no worse than the Saudi Emirate in the Nejd region in terms of territory and army, and the Saudi Emirate in the north has weakened. This requires a new king to lead everyone to rise and complete the unification of the Kingdom of Nejd, and the patriarch is such in existence. But, as you know, the European countries in our surrounding areas are too powerful, and even the Ottoman Empire is helpless." Rashid could not hesitate. It was really the news of powerful wars in European countries in recent years that made him very frightened, especially the Ottoman Empire, which he regarded as an existence to look up to, was defeated by the Russian Empire in the Balkan Peninsula. It is said that the Kingdom of Prussia in the east is an existence that even the Russian Empire is very afraid of, and Prussia defeated the Austrian Empire, which is more powerful than the Ottoman Empire, last year, and occupied the territory of the small country of Denmark, and agreed to the German Confederation. How dare he provoke Prussian Qatar? Isn't that courting death? Therefore, he has ordered his tribesmen not to touch the Qatar Peninsula, and the Netherlands in the southern UAE seems to be a little worse, but that depends on who you are comparing with. Compared with Prussia and the Russian Empire, it is naturally inferior, but you have to know that in the past few years, the Dutch proxy war in South Africa has made Britain miserable. You have to know that Britain took Egypt from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire dared not to say a word to Britain. The Netherlands even dared to confront Britain. Would Rashid dare to provoke the Dutch UAE? Moreover, the Netherlands has a huge influence in the South Indian Ocean. The Dutch warships have been traveling frequently in the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf like Prussia during this period. Transport ships come in and out, which makes him very stressed. It is said that the Persian Empire across the Persian Gulf has tightened the military discipline on the coastline for fear of accidentally triggering a war and causing conflicts between the two countries. Dowd said mysteriously, since the Patriarch knows that European countries are powerful and that the Ottoman Empire is afraid of European countries, can't we use this to fight back? Rashid's eyes lit up, and he looked at Dowd hurriedly. What are you talking about? Dowd said, it's time for the tribe to establish relations with Europe. Then which country do you think is better? Prussia or the Netherlands are both fine. Rashid nodded and said, if we bet on both sides, one side will dominate. You will be responsible for this. Yes. Dowd lowered his head in agreement, but at the moment he lowered his head, he revealed a sly smile. Chapter 319 Pacific Peace and Mutual Assistance Act. Arabian Peninsula, south of the Iraqi region of the Ottoman Empire, Kuwait, the new capital of the Kingdom of Nejd. Abdul Rahman, the king of the Kingdom of Nejd, also looked at the Arabian Peninsula on the map, his eyes full of anger, as the king of the Kingdom of Nejd. He had never thought that before 1865, he, who was only the youngest son of his father Faisal, would inherit his father's position as king. The brothers were deserted by their friends and relatives, and they had established their own forces throughout the Saudi Emirates. Originally, they had consolidated their position in Riyadh because of the support of the elders, but they did not expect that the Sharma tribe in the southeast, which was originally very low-key, took the opportunity to rise, and they were driven away. They came to Kuwait in the northeast today and restored the Kingdom of Nejd. Looking around, it seemed that there was no weakling facing them. Period. The Sharma tribe even took less than a year to complete the occupation of the south of Medina. The brothers were killed and they were driven out to Kuwait. This irreconcilable hatred ignited Abdul Rahman's rage. Your Majesty, someone wants to see you. Just when he wanted to continue thinking about his good life and being forced to flee Riyadh, his close confidant interrupted him at this time. Who is it? Tell me. The Ottoman Empire, which he relied on recently, suffered a series of defeats in the Balkan Peninsula and the Caucasus. The Ottoman Empire was like a frightened bird, and was unwilling to waste energy on the Sharma tribe. Therefore, he was more dissatisfied with the Ottoman Empire, but now he sought asylum, and could only do things with a mentality of relying on others. Now he is very free. No matter who he is, he will meet him first. After all, those who can be considered worthy of notification by his confidants should be extraordinary. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look to the south. There, the chief of the Sharma tribe, Rashid, should have a headache recently. After all, although the Ottoman Empire was unwilling to help him, it set a large number of traps for Rashid. Abdul Rahman smiled happily when he thought of the land that the European powers had obtained in the south of Rashid's territory. I think Rashid is having a headache now, or he is very scared when facing those ambitious Europeans. The Ottoman Empire is directly bringing Europeans to deal with Rashid, which is a good method. I just don't know whether this will bring wolves into the house. It's hard to say for now. However, for him, this is also a way to share the threat brought by the strong Rashid's strength. Thinking of this, looking at the southeast, he couldn't help but sigh. The Hassa region has always been his sphere of influence. It was originally granted to him by his father Faisal. He has been operating it until he succeeded the king. He just wanted to open up the expansion of the Saudi Emirate. What he wanted most was to make the Saudi Emirate a coastal power and a naval power. Therefore, building a military port group in the Persian Gulf is what he wants most. His base camps of Kuwait and Dammam are the top priority. He has also thought about trading the Qatar Peninsula, the UAE and the Oman region with the Ottoman Empire after stabilizing the situation. The reason is to help the Ottoman Empire deal with the Persian Empire and reduce the pressure on the Ottoman Empire. Even the trading method was willing to give up the fertile land of the Silin Valley in the northwest. But before it started, Prussia and the Netherlands took the initiative to propose it. What surprised him even more was that the Ottoman Empire actually agreed. This annoyed him and he felt that his hesitation delayed the transaction, but the subsequent participation of Britain, France, Italy, Spain and Portugal stunned him. All the European powers came here to beg for money? This made him very glad that he did not get involved, otherwise it would not be a good thing to be remembered by all countries. For this reason, when Hassi withdrew from Kuwait, he was followed by the Sharma tribe and occupied the south, and the port of Dammam fell into the hands of the Sharma tribe, which was a big blow to him. With the entry of various countries into the Arabian Peninsula, his dream of a naval power has become a mirage, nothing, not even an empty shell. The entry of European countries made the situation on the Arabian Peninsula confusing and difficult to see clearly. The entire peninsula was shrouded by the power of various countries. Even the Ottoman Empire did not dare to make any opposition. After losing the south, the remaining population was just over 1 million, which was less than the 1.2 million population in the south. How could he dare to challenge the European countries? It was fate. Could it be that their kingdom of Najd really fell? And it was in his own hands? Your Majesty, the guest is here. He was interrupted by his confidant again. He raised his head. To his surprise, this face was a unique Westerner. This made him think about it. When he said the guest just now, he once thought it was another envoy from the Ottoman Empire, in order to persuade them to submit to the Ottoman Empire more, because he had seen them several times in the past month, but now, he saw not them, but Westerners. This must be said. This is really a big surprise. I don't know where this guest is from. The man smiled with his teeth showing and said, Amsterdam, Amsterdam. Abdul Rahman was shocked and looked at him in disbelief. The Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Kingdom of the Netherlands that has recently caused turmoil in the West and even the East? Then, he thought of something else, and a strong spark of hope suddenly burst out of his eyes. On September 20, 1867, the United States and the Netherlands signed 3 agreements that shocked the world. The first agreement was the steam battleship arms purchase. The Kingdom of the Netherlands announced that it had signed an arms purchase agreement with Adelaide, a major naval armament manufacturing town in southern Australia, the United States. The Dutch Chief of Staff Mark Rutte and the Secretary of War of the United States Edwin Stanton attended the signing ceremony. This arms purchase order is for the Netherlands to deliver a first-class steam battleship to the United States every 3 years in the next 9 years, a total of 3 ships. At the same time, the 2 countries signed another agreement, the Pacific Peace and Mutual Assistance Draft, which stipulates that the 2 countries will safeguard the common interests of both countries in the Pacific and prevent the interests of both countries from being damaged. In the agreement, the United States of America recognized the existence of the Alaska Peninsula and the Alexander Archipelago in the North Pacific Ocean, and also recognized that the Hawaiian Islands and the South Pacific Islands belonged to the Netherlands. The Netherlands recognized the interests of the United States of America in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, and also recognized that the Kamchatka Peninsula in the transaction just signed between the Russian Empire and the United States of America belonged to the United States of America. The third agreement was economic, called Economic Mutual Assistance, and its content was that the Netherlands supported the development of the western part of the United States of America, while the United States of America supported the economic development of the Netherlands in the Far East. The 2 countries agreed that in the next 20 years, in addition to cooperation in the Atlantic Ocean, they would carry out economic cooperation in the Far East and the Pacific Ocean in North America to jointly develop the economy. The 3 agreements would take effect as long as they were passed by the Dutch Parliament and the Parliament of the United States of America. Chapter 320 The Envy of France. At the Palace of Versailles in the French Empire, Napoleon I threw the cigar he was smoking directly to the ground after hearing the news. Beside him, besides Prime Minister Olivier, there were Foreign Minister Gray, Finance Minister Lloyd, Commerce Minister Bedaud, Chief of Staff Simon, Army Minister Chast, and Navy Minister Arsenault. Ahem, Prime Minister, you tell me, ahem. Olivier was a little hesitant to speak, and finally, especially seeing His Majesty's somewhat hunched back, he held back. Perhaps, after the Crown Prince takes office, that will be the time for France to make another big move. Napoleon III, who was born in 1808, is now 70 years old. Age has become the best embodiment of his health. Thinking of this, he can't help but worry about His Majesty's health. Because His Majesty's addiction to smoking is killing him. Thinking of this, Olivier couldn't help but think of Britain. The British kings who lost their lives due to excessive smoking before Queen Victoria. Although the British royal family has never released any medical records of the British kings, as the Prime Minister of the French Empire, he knows something more or less. That is, the shocking thing about the deaths of the 3 British kings before them is that they were all closely related to smoking. It is said that although the heir of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, Prince Edward, is only 26 years old now, he has surpassed his ancestors. He almost never puts down his cigar, and the smell of tobacco he likes can be found everywhere. Napoleon III is similar. Like the 3 British kings and Prince Edward, he played an extremely important role in promoting smoking among the aristocrats of the French Empire and making it a recognized aristocratic habit of the French Empire. Even Napoleon III was even crazier, because he actually made the French Empire's cigar factories more typified on the basis of the single cigar, and produced products with different unique flavors. The French Empire's cigars were more competitive in the international market than Britain, occupying a huge market. It is said that in the global cigar market of more than £2 million, the French Empire occupied more than £800,000, and the United Kingdom only occupied £500,000. The rest was divided by the Netherlands, Prussia, the United States and other countries. Therefore, Napoleon III was called the pioneer of smoking and cigarette industry manufacturer by all of Europe. Napoleon III was very proud of this and enjoyed these titles. It has become his habit to smoke immediately after dinner. Not long ago, Magnus, who was still writing about His Majesty's life, said, "The king has been smoking a thin cigar and 2 cigarettes before breakfast since he started to rise, but after breakfast, he smokes an average of 12 thick cigars and 20 cigarettes every day." These have attracted widespread attention in society. As a result, Napoleon III suffered from severe bronchitis when he was 40 years old. The royal doctors at the Palace of Versailles advised him to reduce his smoking, but he ignored the doctor's advice. After he turned 60, he felt some difficulty breathing. In the past 10 years, he could not even chase deer in fields in person when he participated in many hunting in the noble hunting grounds. He proudly held his gun and stared at his followers to chase the prey to him. Olivier witnessed His Majesty's several consecutive attacks of bronchitis. The first statement was that the more and more times it happened, the more difficult it would be for him to breathe. Moreover, due to long-term smoking, he suffered from an incurable lung disease, and even the royal doctors were helpless in these years. In order to relieve his pain, he had to be injected with painkillers. Alice, the senior officials of the French government, including Olivier, began to worry. They didn't know whether he could accompany the Crown Prince, born in 1856, until he came of age. After all, it was still 7 years away. Your Majesty, this was premeditated. We originally thought that their target was the Kingdom of Siam, but now, they caught us off guard and it was the Pacific Ocean. They are really hard to guard against. Olivier had to sigh at the other party's broad thinking. When he received this information, he even thought that if Britain had used the same trick on him, then the French Empire would definitely not have maintained its position as the strongest country in the Middle East. The Eastern Mediterranean might have been taken by Britain long ago, and the North Atlantic was also in Britain's hands. The French Empire would definitely not be so calm now. Your Majesty, Prime Minister, I think this is actually not a bad thing. The words of the Minister of the Navy Arnulf made people look over. Seeing that his goal had been achieved, he immediately said, "Let me ask you, have we ever fought a war with the Netherlands over the years? No, we have never fought any battles with them. On the contrary, we have had a 5-year alliance, although it has expired this year. As for the relationship with the Netherlands, I think it is not an exaggeration to describe it as complicated from our perspective. We are worried that the Netherlands is too powerful to be contained, but the benefits make it more in our interest to choose to be friends with them. However, there are still worries in our hearts. In this case, Why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to let us see how strong the Netherlands, which has not fought a war for decades, is, so that we can make an assessment of the overall military of the Netherlands. Navy Minister Arnulf is a famous hawk in France, so he is very tough and conservative. Looking at his confident look, everyone can't help but be infected by him. After seeing the eye test that others admired, Olivier was secretly proud that his choice was right. This is his student. Napoleon III seemed to be persuaded, so, in this way, the French Empire began to show toughness to the Netherlands, which became a consensus among the French top leaders. Prussia, Berlin. Bismarck said, "If we are defeated by the French Empire all at once, I think we can tear up the alliance between the Kingdom of Prussia and them. If the Netherlands wins this round on the issue of the Kingdom of Siam, I think the relationship between our two countries will be closer." In short, this battle for the Kingdom of Siam is the best testing ground for us to see the organizational ability of the Netherlands and the military strength of the French Empire. Even Bismarck said meaningfully, "This will benefit Prussia's future strategy a lot. But don't forget that our interests are also there. If the French Empire expands its power there rapidly, it will be more than just a strategic threat to us. France will also become stronger and more resources will be added to the mainland. It is not impossible that the Netherlands will even be unable to recover because of this. I hope everyone needs to consider the problem in more detail." Crown Prince Frederick's words were obviously aimed at Bismarck. Everyone knows the relationship between the two. Bismarck sits on the mountain and watches the tigers fight, while Crown Prince Frederick is afraid of letting the fire burn and threatening himself. The relationship between the two is also well known. One is pro-British, the other anti-British. The former is anti-Russian, the latter is pro-Russian. The former is a moderate and the other is a hawk. It is well known in the British government that Crown Prince Frederick had advised to reduce the defense budget, which had angered Prime Minister Bismarck. William I certainly understood it, but from beginning to end, he pretended not to know. And this time, he did not hear the tone of Crown Prince Frederick. Despite the provocation of the Crown Prince, there was no change on Bismarck's face. He was still as calm as before. He just said, "Don't forget, we can also act as mediators." Did William IV of the Netherlands refuse Prussia's interference in the affairs of the Far East before? Perhaps the French Empire can help us this time? By then, Prussia, which has no foothold in the Far East, can take the opportunity to gain benefits and break the gap of our influence there now. That is what we need most. Bismarck looked at Crown Prince Frederick, and said earnestly, "Prussia needs to follow the example of Britain and France and become a global power. However, we are not as good as the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Kingdom of Spain, or even Portugal in international colonies. Therefore, establishing a Prussian colony in the Far East is what we need most, and now is an opportunity. I think the Netherlands will make concessions." As you all know, William IV is very smart. The others were moved, their faces were silent, and they obviously agreed with Bismarck's statement. On September 28, 1867, the Chief of the General Staff of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Chief of the General Staff of the Kingdom of Prussia, Moltke, communicated for the first time after the war in the Kingdom of Siam. It was also a telegram dialogue between the two countries' highest military officers in the history of the world. In the telegram, the Chief of the General Staff of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, called on Moltke that the Netherlands demanded that the French Empire stop its military operations in the Kingdom of Siam, stop damaging the huge investment of the Netherlands there, and not use the war to threaten the influence of the Netherlands in the Kingdom of Siam in the Far East. For this reason, the Netherlands will cooperate and coordinate with Prussia. According to the news materials released by the Dutch government, Mark Rutte sent a telegram at the invitation of the Chief of the General Staff of the Kingdom of Prussia, Moltke. Mark Rutte said that the two countries should take the status of the Kingdom of Siam seriously, take care of the interests of various countries there, respect each other, coexist peacefully, and avoid confrontation between the interests of European countries in the Far East. The French Empire should take care of the concerns of the Netherlands and Prussia and not damage the interests of the Netherlands and Prussia. This is what the Paris government should do. The Netherlands hopes to establish a stable and healthy relationship with Prussia and France, just like the friendly relationship of allies a few years ago. Although the Netherlands looks forward to this with a friendly attitude, the Netherlands will also make the worst plan and will defend the national interests and dignity of the Netherlands. The French Empire should not underestimate the determination and ability of the Netherlands. He also said that the French Empire needs to enhance mutual trust with neighboring countries including the Netherlands, strengthen dialogue and exchanges, manage risks and crises, and carry out pragmatic cooperation to ensure the normal and stable development of relations between the French Empire and various countries. The two countries will maintain unimpeded channels of communication in the international situation and contribute their own strength to the stable development of the world. The two countries also announced that Prussian warships were allowed to dock at the port of Jakarta in the Far East, which brought benefits to Prussia's voyages in the Far East. Chapter 321. The Netherlands is still too weak. 1867, the Dutch Chief of Staff Mark Rutte and the Prussian Chief of Staff Moltke agreed that the Prussian fleet would be allowed to stop for supplies in Jakarta, the largest port city in the Dutch East Indies. The Netherlands also agreed to help Prussia strengthen its relationship with the Kingdom of Siam. Moltke thanked Mark Rutte for this. Mark Rutte also expressed his position on the issue of the Kingdom of Siam. He pointed out that the total amount of private capital investment in the Kingdom of Siam by the Netherlands exceeded £2 million, the annual arms export was £200,000, and the industrial products and other types of export trade also exceeded £1 million. Therefore, he said that the Kingdom of Siam is a very important market for the Netherlands and one of the key interests of the Netherlands. The Netherlands does not allow its key market to be destroyed, which will affect the livelihood of the Dutch people. Therefore, this involves one of the core interests of the Netherlands. This is also the reason why the Netherlands is on high alert for this situation. If the war with the Kingdom of Siam is not handled well, it will have a serious impact on the interests of the Netherlands. For this reason, the Netherlands will make some moves to safeguard national interests, which is also right. The Dutch army is resolute in safeguarding national interests. Our Majesty William IV has repeatedly asked the military to be guided by national interests and point guns at enemies that threaten Dutch interests. He hopes that Prussia will understand the situation of the Netherlands and agree with the Netherlands' approach. According to the news released by the Prussian military, Chief of the General Staff Moltke said that Prussia agrees with the above statement of the Netherlands. Prussia is willing to promote the implementation of the friendly relations between the two countries to continue to move forward. On the issue of the Far East, the consensus reached between the two countries will be implemented by the Prussian side. At the same time, Prussia will strengthen cooperation with the Netherlands in the military field in the Far East and Europe with a frank and open attitude. Chief of the General Staff Moltke also said that the Kingdom of Prussia recognized the Netherlands' great influence in the Far East, especially in the Pacific and Indian Ocean regions, and Prussia also recognized the Netherlands' territorial dominance there, and did not question it. He stressed that Prussia would strengthen communication with the Netherlands in a participatory manner, and the two sides would jointly manage the competition and military risks in Europe and the Far East, and properly handle the differences and difficulties faced by the two countries in their relations with other countries. The chiefs of the general staff of the two countries will also hold a quarterly meeting system at the vice minister level starting next month on a series of military-related issues such as the security exchanges between the two countries' navy and army, the war in the Kingdom of Siam, the war in the Balkans, the risk of the war in Uruguay and South America, and cooperation in African colonies, so as to communicate regularly, coordinate positions, and reduce differences. According to the news released by the Dutch Ministry of Defense, Mark Rutte and Moltke also discussed issues such as the overall relationship between the two militaries, global regional security issues, and the exchange of arms technology between the two countries, and these issues will also be included in the content of the meeting system at the vice minister level of the Dutch military in the future. The series of actions taken by the Netherlands are like a big net. While the net is reaching the Pacific and Indian Oceans, it also shows the Netherlands' flexible diplomatic relations to the European and American powers. Every time these actions are released, the situation in various countries becomes more complicated. It also proves a saying, diplomacy is ever-changing, and the shape of the cloud dragon is ever-changing. A fixed national diplomacy is not called diplomacy, it is just called a policy. Netherlands, Amsterdam, the Royal Palace of the Netherlands. The cool breeze in the early morning of autumn is slightly cold, and the sea breeze from the Atlantic Ocean is blowing. William IV walked into the private office of the royal family. The aura on his body is that because he is 27 years old and belongs to the prime of life, coupled with regular exercise, his body is extremely strong, and he is very satisfied with this. Recently on the Arabian Peninsula, although the Kingdom of Najd is weak, it still occupies Kuwait and Saudi Hassa, where oil is most easily exploited in the future. This is the most important fuel for the Netherlands to enter the second industrial revolution, dominated by electrification. Although Australia and other countries also have it, and even coal mines, the same is true for East India. But it is not easy to exploit and the cost is too high. The easy exploitation of oil in the Middle East solves this problem. After all, if the coal mines in East India and Australia are not mined, they are theirs, but if the oil in the Middle East is not mined, it may belong to others. Therefore, making friends with Abdul Rahman of the Kingdom of Najd is a good investment for the Netherlands, not to mention that the opponent's weakness now is the best time for the Netherlands to buy at the bottom. Even if the opponent fails in the end, I think the Ottoman Empire will not dare to object under the contract agreement. As for the patriarch of the Charman tribe, Mohammed bin Rashid, William IV narrowed his eyes and smiled slightly. It seems that Daud will proceed as planned. Thinking of this, he came to the area where the safes were placed, and in front of the cabinet with the words Indian Ocean written on it, he opened it and saw that there were fewer books on it than in other cabinets, less than 10 small books, and each of them had a name written on it. Among them, the name on the top was Daud mentioned by William IV just now. Daud was an Arab in Jakarta, East India, when I was still the Crown Prince of the Netherlands 8 years ago. He was just a Sharma merchant, running between Jakarta and the Arabian Peninsula. At that time, it was just a whim to bring him under my command. I didn't expect that this guy was not bad. He actually walked step by step to the present and became the most trusted think tank of Mohammed bin Rashid. With him, the Netherlands can deploy in the Arabian Peninsula. Gentle and warm. William IV looked at the booklet flipping casually, wrote a few words on it with a pen, and then put it back carefully. This will make the situation there more interesting. After William IV had his 8th visit to the Middle East, he turned his attention to the Kingdom of Siam and took out Anna's booklet from the safe in the far east next to him. He also added notes one after another. Anna has been lurking there for many years. According to her, Rama IV's health has begun to deteriorate recently, and Chulalongkorn's position as the Crown Prince is very stable, and the other party is also capable. However, Anna guessed that Chulalongkorn was respectful to the Netherlands on the surface, but he kept making small moves in secret. Recently, he has been flirting with the United States of America and has sent envoys to the French Empire many times, intending to privately reach an armistice agreement with the French Empire. For this purpose, he even privately asked the Governor-General of India to be a middleman in treaty relations with the French Empire. William IV had long been vigilant about this. That was why he strengthened his relationship with Prussia and asked Mark Rutte and Moltke to have a semi-public telegram dialogue. In fact, many contents had been agreed upon long ago, and the telegram talks were just a public forum. It is true that national interests cannot be completely aligned. The interests of the Netherlands are not necessarily the interests of the Kingdom of Siam. Developing oneself is the most important thing. Allies? That is just a temporary need. Thinking of this, William IV couldn't help but smile bitterly and shook his head. If the Netherlands is not strong enough at present, the Netherlands would not rely so much on the chain of allies. It should choose to be more low-key. Alice, it is still too weak, so it will form cliques. For this, he really envies Britain and the Russian Empire. Chapter 322 The Anger of the Danish Royal Family. 1867, a blockbuster news came from the Russian Empire royal family. Princess Dagmar of Denmark was recognized by Alexander II and the entire Russian royal family. After several considerations, the Russian royal family actually broke the embarrassing situation of Princess Dagmar. Alexander II asked his second son, Prince Nicholas Alexandrovich, to replace his dead brother and inherit the marriage with Princess Dagmar. At the same time, Alexander II also announced that Nicholas Alexandrovich would inherit the position of crown prince. Resurrection from the dead, a miracle was born. This is what it means. The brother died, and the younger brother inherited his fiancée? This is the first time in the history of the European royal family. This stunned almost everyone. When the news reached the Netherlands, Queen Alexandra of the Netherlands and William IV both received the news, but their faces were different. Princess Dagmar, who was still staying in the Netherlands, was even more surprised. Alexandra had an expression of disbelief on her face. How could this happen? How could His Majesty Alexander II send such a message? This is no joke. What's wrong with the Russian Empire? What should Dagmar do? Agreeing to it seems illogical. If she doesn't agree, she will offend the Russian Empire and damage Dagmar's reputation. Is everyone in the Russian Empire crazy? Princess Dagmar, who is the person involved, looked confused and seemed to have not reacted yet. Alexandra's words made her completely at a loss. How could it develop into this, Nicholas? You want me to be with that guy Nicholas? Thinking about her previous identity, Damag felt embarrassed and lost her mind again for a while. William IV calmly took in the expressions of the two people. He sighed in his heart that the wheel of history has not changed. Alexander I really did this, and Damag, the little sister-in-law, was finally asked by her future father-in-law Alexander I for his second son Nicholas after her fiancé died. Seeing the two of them, he could imagine that his cheat father-in-law, Christian IX, was definitely not doing any better in Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. William IV guessed correctly. The Danish royal palace was now in chaos. Father, Alexander I actually released such important information without consulting us. He was so ungentlemanly. Frederick was going to be engaged to Princess Louise of Sweden in a few months, so he had to attend etiquette classes more frequently recently. However, when his sister, Princess Damag, was repeatedly pushed to the forefront of the European royal family, he expressed dissatisfaction. After all, this was not a good reputation. Christian IX's second son, Prince George, who had just married Princess Helena, the third daughter of Queen Victoria, was even more irritable and said, "The Russian Empire has always been known for its barbarism in Europe. It is not surprising that Alexander I did this. But if it was someone else, we would not care. The problem is that the other party is our Damar. For us, this is an insult to the Danish royal family. Father, I think we should refuse." Christian IX's face changed when he heard this. He was about to say something to stop his second son from saying this, but his daughter-in-law Princess Helena, who was sitting next to Prince George, said, "Yes, Father, I think the Russian Empire has gone too far. Princess Damar is beautiful and decent. She is one of the best choices in Europe. It is said that her mother, Her Majesty Queen Victoria, also praised her highly. She even lamented that it was a pity that Princess Damar was engaged to the Russian Empire, otherwise, she would have wanted to ask for Princess Damar for my second brother." What? All members of the Danish royal family were shocked, and even Prince George was shocked by his wife's words. Princess Helena's words were too informative. Christian IX and his men looked at Princess Helena. Queen Victoria actually paid attention to Damag. Queen Victoria also wanted to ask for Damag to marry her second son, Prince Alfred. Although Prince Alfred was only the second son, there was Prince Edward in front of him, so it was not his turn to inherit the throne. However, no one would think that his weight would become too small, because the British knew that he was Queen Victoria's favorite son. Born in 1844, he began to serve in the army for many years at the age of 16. Even in 1862, he was in the first place in the succession of the Kingdom of Greece, and the Greeks also recognized it. However, Queen Victoria strongly opposed it and flatly rejected the possibility of letting her son inherit, and finally William I got the advantage. After that, the Queen wanted him to inherit the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg in the German Confederation, but she did not expect that Prussia occupied the entire German Confederation, which changed the Queen's plan. At the Queen's birthday party in 1866, Queen Victoria even conferred Prince Alfred the titles of Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Ulster and Earl of Kent. In the same year, Prince Alfred won a seat in the British House of Lords, similar to the Senate, and spoke on behalf of the Queen. Now that Prince Edward has not married, Prince Alfred is still the second in line to the British throne, second only to Prince Edward. Therefore, it is understandable that Christian IX and his friends are in a state of confusion. Princess Helena, who saw this scene, was also very proud. Her natal family was strong, so she naturally had more status and voice in her husband's family. Although Helena was often privately called a big-breasted and brainless person among Queen Victoria's many outstanding children, she could not be said to have no scheming under the influence of her upbringing. It depends on who the background board is. Moreover, multiple camps were formed early among the Queen's children. It's not to mention that the eldest daughter, Princess Victoria, is loved by everyone. The second daughter, Princess Alice, has always been closest to Prince Edward, while the third daughter, Princess Helena, has the best relationship with Prince Alfred. Princess Louise is a lone traveler, and the followers are almost the same. The others are still young. It was for this reason that Princess Helena told Christian IX and others about her second brother. Prince Alfred's status was not bad. This was the idea of Christian IX and others. However, Alexander II's public proposal made it difficult for Christian IX to refuse. At this time, Queen Louisa next to him took out a letter and gave it to Christian IX. This is from Alexandra, and there are words from William on it. Everyone couldn't help but look at Christian IX. Alexandra's letter? Seeing her mother's hesitation, and the topic just discussed. At this time, it was taken out, and everyone knew that it was about the topic without guessing. Alexandra was the eldest princess, and she was respected by her brothers and sisters, including Christian IX and his wife, who also valued her opinions. What's more, the other party is now the Queen of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Secretary General of the International Women's Association. These identities made Princess Helena, who was so arrogant just now, choose to be low-key. After all, she once defeated several sisters and won the position of Queen of William IV. Seeing this, several people did not say anything. The younger ones, Princess Tara, who was only 13 years old, and Prince Valdemar, who was 9 years old, were even more proud that the second sister-in-law immediately shut up when the eldest sister became famous. Besides, after reading the letter, Christian IX's face was less hesitant and more solemn. Seeing everyone looking at him, he couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Alexandra and William think that it is good for Damag to marry into the Russian Empire, and Damag doesn't dislike Alexander II and his wife. Russian Empire, St. Petersburg." Alexander II solemnly took out the letter written to him by William IV again. The Netherlands asked the Russian Empire to take sides? Don't you know that the Russian Empire has always been unwilling to participate in direct confrontation in Western Europe? However, Damag's matter has come to a successful conclusion. He has received a response from Denmark, agreeing to Damag's marriage to Nicholas, which has not changed much in the original pattern. Alexander II's eyes sharpened, and he said, "Britain withdrew from the North American War. It seems that the Balkan Peninsula can only be reconciled. The Caucasus can be manipulated. The Arabian Peninsula? The Middle East." He sighed. "Prussia and the Netherlands will make trouble there, but the Russian Empire can only mess around in the Caucasus. The outbreak of the French Empire's invasion of the Far East War is an adventurous move by the French Empire to reshape the Far East's geopolitical space. The Kingdom of Siam has become a quagmire for the French Empire. The situation around the French Empire has undergone a major reversal. Since the Vienna Conference in 1815, when European countries defeated Napoleon I and the war ended, the French Empire has developed its economy, industry and military in a low-key manner, intending to restore its former strength. Over the past 50 years, the achievements of the French Empire in reshaping space will be reset to zero overnight. The outbreak of the war between Siam and France will bring about geopolitical fission and reorganization, not only in the Far East, but also in Europe and America. Why do I say that? Because the French Empire launched an invasion in the Far East, Napoleon III abandoned the results of his many years of operation in Mexico. This is one of the most significant wastes of resources. You must know that the number of casualties in the French Empire there is calculated in tens of thousands. The loss is not small, which is why Napoleon III must want to make some achievements in the Far East. After all, the domestic pressure is too great. The second reason is that because the French Empire even abandoned Mexico, Paraguay and South America did withdraw from its original plan to invade western Brazil. Although the two countries are still in confrontation, Paraguayan President Pelés has indeed calmed down a lot. France's resource allocation has weakened Paraguay and South America. Therefore, South America has become much quieter, and the influence of France's presence has also decreased. Third, the deterioration of European relations has cost the French Empire a heavy price. All countries have begun to launch various alliances against France, which has put Napoleon III under great pressure. As Herman van Rompuy, president of Leiden University in the Netherlands, analyzed step by step in the European Times. Chapter 323, Rapidly Changing France's Surrounding Areas. 1867, an article in the European Times immediately sparked a wave of heated discussions in Europe and the United States. Herman van Rompuy is known as the world's most famous current affairs and political commentator since the 19th century. He has been commenting on global political affairs in Europe's most famous newspaper, the European Times, for more than 10 years. Every time he expresses his views, many people will read and analyze them. Even royal families and government officials of various countries will take his views very seriously and analyze the pros and cons of them for themselves. Well, President Herman van Rompuy is so amazing. It is said that during this period, Even Napoleon III was looking forward to his new policy comments, hoping to get a glimpse of the strengths and weaknesses of the French Empire from them. Well, if you ask me, Herman van Perron has been the president of Leiden University for more than 20 years. He was previously the head of William II's think tank. Although he was not absorbed by William IV to continue to serve in this position, he also serves as a policy advisor in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Dutch cabinet government. It can be said that his diplomatic influence on the Netherlands has not decreased. You may not know yet, but this article he published this time, The Rapidly Changing Periphery of the French Empire, was written by President Herman van Perron at the invitation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Dutch government. No way? In this case, why is it published in the European Times? Isn't this going to spread this view all over the world? How can the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs benefit from it? You don't understand this, right? This is called a heartbreaking strategy. The purpose is to directly attack French society and disrupt the stability of the other side's society, but it also makes the French Empire and other countries in the world only believe in this public opinion, because this only represents the public opinion, and it is very convincing. In the rapidly changing French Empire's great periphery, Herman van Perron said that he mentioned at the beginning of the war that this would be a small Crimean War, 1853 to 1856. History may not repeat the scene of the Russian Empire facing the British, French, Austrian and other wars, but people in reality are bound by history. From the French Emperor Napoleon II to the French Empire's diplomatic and strategic circles, they are obsessed with the glorious history of the French Empire, and at the same time they are entangled in the current urgency of the French Empire. The glory of history and the tight reality tear the elites of the French Empire apart. The war between the French Empire's invasion and the Kingdom of Siam's counter-invasion was a war between two sovereign states. It was also the war that most directly demonstrated the French Empire's external ambitions. It can even be said that if it had won, France would have completely established itself. Since 1815, France has been suppressed by various countries. It has opened an important page and is crucial to the French Empire. War is like an earthquake. The earthquake spreads far away and causes varying degrees of damage. First of all, the fog and accidents of the war between France and Siam reverse the military image problems of France and Siam, as well as the status generally recognized by the international community. The French Empire fell from the altar of the world's second largest military power with comprehensive national strength, second only to the British Empire. In recent years, the French Empire has relied on this status recognized by various countries to invade Mexico and various parts of the world, making various countries wary. As a result, the French Empire has faced little resistance and few countries have intervened. All these allowed Napoleon II to gain a firm foothold and establish a military and strategic deterrent against Russia in the surrounding areas and even the whole world. This was the only pillar for the French Empire to continue to pursue the status of a world power, even surpassing the status of Britain. From the Crimean War in 1853, together with Britain's support for the Ottoman Empire to defeat the Tsarist Russian Empire, to the leading support for the Kingdom of Sardinia, namely the Kingdom of Italy after 1861, in the war with the Austrian Empire in 1860, to the subsequent Mexican Invasion War, and the deliberate support for Paraguay to provoke conflicts in South America some time ago, and to prepare to send troops to participate. These types of wars, big and small, greatly expanded the deterrent power of the French Empire and established and consolidated its position as the world's second largest military power. On November 20, 1866, the War of French invasion of the Kingdom of Siam broke out. 3 days after the war, France encountered strong resistance. Although it occupied the large town of Takeo, its advance slowed down. Within 10 days of the war, while the French Empire was advancing slowly, its own casualties rose sharply, exceeding 3,000. At the same time, the world's public opinion was full of Francophobia, and most public opinion believed that the French Empire would quickly occupy the Cambodian region of the Kingdom of Siam. But in the end, this estimate was wrong. Until March 20, 1867, 4 months after the war, the French Empire had only occupied several southeastern cities including Phnom Penh, and the casualties of the French Empire had reached more than 20,000. The French reinforcements from Mexico also returned in vain. The powerful military deterrence established by the French Empire with its army and some advanced weapons and equipment has greatly diminished. The most intuitive manifestation is that the French Empire's guns, Battleships and troops have been blocked by the Kingdom of Siam, and several warships have been sunk. It is expected that the image of the French Empire, which has been the world's third largest arms seller in the past 5 years, will plummet in the future. The export of arms trade will shrink greatly, and some countries have even begun to prepare to cancel orders. Secondly, the French Empire War was a war between a big country and a small country. The proud and noble French Empire army originally thought that it would have a smooth journey, but the strong crushing side did not happen. Instead, it was trapped everywhere and progressed slowly. Napoleon III's military strongman status was seriously damaged. The image of the French Empire plummeted, and the big country was vividly dragged down by the small country in front of the world. Third, other medium-sized countries such as the Netherlands joined in defending their own strategic interests and publicly supported the Kingdom of Siam, which caught the French Empire off guard and suffered even more heavy losses. This is the first time that many small and medium-sized countries have united to resist the world's great powers, and they have resisted. The French Empire has lost everything inside and outside. Until now, there is more than a month to the first anniversary, and the war between France and Siam is still pulling in central Cambodia. The French Empire has invested more than 150,000 troops in this war, and more than half of them have been damaged. It can be called a Waterloo War. The Kingdom of Siam has gained support from more and more countries, including the member states of the International Hague Court, the United Kingdom, and the American countries. Until recently, Prussia and the United States of America seem to have expressed their willingness to cooperate with the Netherlands and cooperate with the Netherlands in the Pacific. Although this did not mean to publicly support the Netherlands against the French Empire, who would think that there was no substantive content? It seems that even the Confederate States of America in the South has begun to discuss humanitarian support for the Kingdom of Siam in Parliament. The French Empire was the primary contributor to helping the United States to be independent from the British colonies. Now the entire North and South America are helping the opponents of the French Empire, which may be regarded as betrayal by the French Empire, which has aroused the anger and revenge of the French Empire. The North and South America did it first, which shows that the influence of the French Empire has really weakened. This war in the Far East has made the French Empire take the risk of challenging the dominance of Britain and the Netherlands in the Far East. If it fails, not only will the French Empire's plan fail, not only will all previous efforts be wasted, but its image in Europe will also decline, and the French Empire's own allies will have a stronger centrifugal tendency. Finally, the stalemate of this war was a high-rise and low-fall move by the French Empire to reconstruct its power. Napoleon III might realize that the Kingdom of Prussia in the north, after defeating the Austrian Empire and annexing the entire German Confederation, has become unstoppable. The Kingdom of the Netherlands has also absorbed the resources of the Far East and the powerful overseas territories in Africa. Although its rise is not as direct as Prussia, it also makes the French Empire feel a sword hanging on its back, which is very uncomfortable. Britain has completed the integration of the Indian subcontinent, and rich resources are continuously transported to the British Isles through the Suez Canal and the Mediterranean. The national strength of Britain has increased slowly and steadily. The French Empire is only relying on the barren lands in Africa, with a large area and few resources, but it is difficult to resist these threats. In particular, the Mediterranean also has the rising Italy and Spain, which is unwilling to become a second-class country, which makes the situation of fighting for territory in the Mediterranean also in secret. All of this has brought a sense of urgency to the top leaders of the French Empire. Therefore, it is the national policy of the French Empire to plunder the Far East, which is rich in overseas resources, and catch up with the overseas territories of Britain, Prussia and the Netherlands to plunder resources to strengthen itself. Britain, Prussia, and the Netherlands naturally saw the mystery. Therefore, this time the Netherlands took the lead in forming a group to impose sanctions on the French Empire, which won the public support of Britain and the tacit consent of Prussia. Although the Netherlands had some false pretense, it did indeed hide a beautiful combination of punches, which hurt the French Empire deeply. As one went up and the other down, the French Empire declined, while the international image of the Netherlands increased sharply. The outbreak of the war in the Far East and its stalemate plunged the French Empire into a quagmire, providing the Kingdom of Spain and the Kingdom of Italy with a good opportunity to get rid of the influence of the French Empire. Queen Isabella II of Spain accelerated a process of domestic political reform, while strengthening the strategic ties between the member states of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. and rejected the French Empire's request for Spain to send troops to help France in the war in the Far East. On the international stage, it distanced itself from the French Empire. It can be seen that the military deterrence and control system created by the French Empire in the surrounding areas have greatly receded due to the stalemate on the battlefield of the Far East invasion. A deep consequence of this war is that the French Empire has to face an international reality, that is, the French Empire is once again isolated internationally. Herman van Peron said that the French Empire has now abandoned the positive image established in the past decades and many important historical legacies, which is self-destructive. The French Empire dreams of building an overseas colony that rivals Britain, from the Atlantic to the Pacific and Indian Ocean systems, but now the war with the Kingdom of Siam will make the French Empire and this grand plan call out a hard borderline. The French Empire will be forced to build borders with neighboring countries for a long time in the future, and will be driven out of Europe and become a clown on the center stage. After the outbreak of the war in the Far East, the Hague International Court of Justice was activated and small and medium-sized European countries awakened. Under the leadership of the Netherlands, these loose countries united unprecedentedly and cooperated. The Netherlands took the lead in resisting the French Empire, and countries such as Sweden and Denmark supported it from behind. In response to the threat of Napoleon III of France, even countries in the Americas responded to the call of the Netherlands. This powerful force frightened even Britain, so Britain finally chose to join the plan in an attempt to ease relations with these countries. In the end, this force brought a steady stream of various support including weapons to the Kingdom of Siam, allowing the Kingdom of Siam to withstand the attack of the French Empire. This was not only a victory for the Kingdom of Siam, but also a victory for these small and medium-sized countries. According to the private statement of the Netherlands, this was an attempt by small and medium-sized countries to challenge the French Empire by proxy war, and the result was successful. Herman van Peron pointed out that this war broke the routine, the world situation entered a period of chaos, and the power comparison of various countries began to change. The Netherlands used this peculiar method to break its own lack of strength and successfully challenged the French Empire, the second largest power in the world. This is what One Battle to Fame said. The French Empire lost the military deterrence accumulated since the Napoleonic Wars. It can be expected that as the war in the Kingdom of Siam continues, the sanctions of the countries of the Hague International Court of Justice will be further expanded, and the number of members of the organization will also increase as more small countries are absorbed into it. He even speculated that it was possible that a major power would join in the near future. In that case, this organization would have more say in global affairs, and the French Empire would face further isolation. This war incident became an excuse for the expansion of this organization, and the French Empire would also become a reason for other European countries to unite, establishing a hard border with the French Empire. After this war, the pace of expansion of the French Empire would definitely be suspended, and the policy of turning to the Far East would also be stopped. The French Empire had to put its diplomatic resources back on easing relations with neighboring countries. However, unlike the first half of this century, with the rise of the Netherlands and the strength of Prussia, Europe has undergone major changes in the situation. It is no longer dominated by Britain and Tsarist Russia and Austria in 1815. The French Empire needs to face more countries seeking compensation for interests, which is a headache for Napoleon III. There are many people and many mouths, and France needs to change in all aspects, and it will suffer huge losses. Van Peron pointed out that it can be expected that after this war, the European powers will no longer underestimate the status of small countries, let alone arbitrarily destroy the interests of each other. He said that Europe might usher in a brand new system, and the Atlantic and the world would also welcome decades of peace after learning this lesson. Of course, this was just his guess. The details would be known only after reading it. William IV put the article down and agreed with Herman van Peron's point of view. You are worthy of being the folk trumpet of the Dutch foreign policy that I have tried my best to promote. I think all countries in the world are convinced by your point of view. William IV said proudly to Herman van Peron beside him. The latter said, the situation in Europe has changed. The rise of the Netherlands has become a reality. The struggle in the Far East will continue. Your Majesty, I think Britain will be alert and be more cautious against us. William IV nodded, which was considered to be an approval of this statement. The advantages of France and the Netherlands have become increasingly thin, both economically and militarily. Originally, the African territories and Catholic countries, such as its allies Spain and Italy, were France's room for maneuver. But after this war, the primary challenge facing France is how to ease relations, find ways to cooperate with other countries again, and even explore opportunities other than sanctions. William IV said this and looked at Van Perron, and said in unison, "The Netherlands' opportunity has come." Chapter 324, The Great Development of the Netherlands in 6 Years. 1867, a poll showed that King William IV surpassed his father William II and grandfather William II, and was ranked as the greatest king together with his great-grandfather William I. For this reason, the House of Representatives of the Dutch Parliament invited him to give a speech. William IV naturally did not refuse. In the eyes of many Dutch people, a king who refuses the invitation of his own parliament is definitely not a competent king. So people began to discuss William IV's performance in the past 6 years since he became the King of the Netherlands on December 1, 1861. They found that William IV took the opportunity to launch a series of democratic reform measures as soon as he succeeded to the throne, including supporting the construction of Dutch newspapers and allowing everyone to express their opinions criticizing the cabinet government and the royal family. William IV even publicly said that in his opinion, allowing people to speak freely and improving people's wisdom is the window for the rise of the Netherlands. When this policy was announced, it attracted a wave of positive responses from the entire Dutch Parliament. William IV won a lot of support from the members of Parliament. It must be said that this reform of William IV touched the members of Parliament at that time. For the members of Parliament, is there anything more to their liking than this reform of William IV? William IV formulated a policy to make the work of the Dutch government orderly. It is necessary to concentrate power on a person who can flexibly use various powers within a limited scope of power and take decisive action when encountering problems. Therefore, he wanted to start with a government's work order. He and Prime Minister Thorbecke formulated a work order. All documents approved by the Prime Minister should be handed over to various departments for processing after obtaining the Prime Minister's signature. The affairs within the responsibilities of each department must be approved by the ministers of each department before they can be handed over to their subordinates for implementation. Particularly important issues are discussed in meetings before implementation. In order to handle things more quickly and efficiently, he abolished some cumbersome etiquette for receiving foreign guests, and also required that the dress be as simple and plain as possible. In addition, the annual opening speech of the National Assembly was cancelled, and the document form was used to replace it. At the same time, many official residences were open for tourists to visit every morning. For ordinary people, William IV was a king who sought welfare for them. William IV was very concerned about the living conditions of ordinary people. He advocated saving instead of taxation. He abolished the local domestic tax that had been implemented for nearly 40 years. At the same time, he also advocated expanding the voting rights of white men. In the Netherlands and Suriname, he abolished the property restrictions on voters. He also announced that he would follow up in the Far East in the future. In order to successfully integrate all races of color in the Far East into the Netherlands and completely solve the problem of interference in slave trade, William IV promulgated the Slave Trade Prohibition Decree in 1862, so that the Dutch Constitution stipulated that April 1, 1862 was the last deadline for slave trade. Although this constitutional amendment bill was interfered with and obstructed by domestic supporters of slavery, it was successfully passed and implemented, and legal restrictions were imposed on slavery. This also made it easier for the Netherlands to manage the Far East in the future. William IV also made some adjustments to the Dutch land policy. After 1858, the Dutch land law led by William II increased the land price, which caused an uproar at the time. After he succeeded to the throne in 1861, in order to quell the public criticism, William IV supported the Dutch Parliament to formulate a new land policy, reducing the original minimum amount of land purchased by each person from 100 acres to 50 acres. It also allowed some credit purchases with insufficient funds, but the unit price of land remained the original price. This is a major benefit for the Dutch people and the lower class. Therefore, William IV received great support. In addition to the local area, William IV also encouraged the development of the Far East. Starting from the first half of 1862, he formulated the Far East Land Law, stipulating that the minimum amount of land purchased by each person at a time was reduced to 50 acres, and 100 acres were given away. The price was less than half of the local area. These preferential policies made a large number of native Dutch people flock to new areas in the Far East, and the eastward movement began. In 1863, William IV supported the Parliament to enact a new land law, which offered preferential treatment to those who bought land on credit and extended the final repayment date by 5 years. William IV's land policy had a good effect. Land sales increased from 67,000 acres in January 1862 to 3.5 million acres in 1866. The Far East accounted for 3.2 million acres of land, and Australia accounted for 2.8 million acres of land. Another democratic reform of William IV was to abolish the destructive human rights law started by William I in 1862. William IV enacted the Naturalization Act. In his State of the Union address, he said, "Refusing to grant nationality to people who have lived here for 15 years is to oppose the majority of people who have this intention. No matter who it is, as long as he shows his sincerity in being willing to share the same fate with us forever, can he not really obtain the qualifications of a citizen?" Therefore, after William IV revised the Naturalization Act and promulgated it, it stipulated that as long as foreign residents have lived in the Netherlands for 5 years, they can automatically apply for Dutch citizenship. This policy has been formulated by William IV for a long time. After all, the population of the Netherlands is there. How can it confront and rise with big countries without absorbing international population? In addition to these, William IV implemented a series of measures in the country that helped consolidate and develop the kingdom. In summary, these measures can be divided into two aspects. One is protectionism and the other is domestic reform. As far as protectionism is concerned, it mainly protects some of the domestic industries that have just started by raising tariffs. As early as 1855, the Dutch Parliament passed a protective measures bill to increase tariffs on textiles and iron products. After William IV ascended the throne, he continued to implement this decree. This move enabled the textile industry and steel smelting industry in the Netherlands and the Far East to obtain favorable development space, thereby promoting the process of the Netherlands' own industrial revolution. As for domestic reforms, they were mainly jointly funded by the Dutch government and capital consortiums, and special funds were set up to vigorously develop the construction of public infrastructure in the Netherlands, and actively improve the transportation conditions in the Netherlands and the Far East. Expand the markets in both places. William IV required that each Dutch town hall must have a wide 30-meter wide and 5-kilometer-long Harden Avenue in front of it, which is a model of promotion. This move by William IV and the parliamentary legislation set off a wave of blockades in the construction of toll roads by various provinces, offices and companies in the Netherlands. Regions rich in river and lake resources began to vigorously build small canals, which greatly promoted the development of agriculture and transportation. The improvement of domestic transportation conditions also promoted the flow of population in the Netherlands, and a large number of immigrants poured into the Far East of the Netherlands. This is very consistent with the Far East development policy formulated by William IV. Chapter 325 Say No to Big Business Monopoly. With a large number of people migrating from the Netherlands to Australia and New Guinea in the Far East, these provinces are no longer barren, and European and American immigrants account for about 10% of the population, while the natives of the Far East account for about 60% of the total population of 20 million, while the population of the Netherlands is only 6 million. The increase in population and land use in the Australian continent, New Guinea Island, the East Indies and the South Pacific Islands in the Far East has expanded the domestic market and production base of the Netherlands, and also promoted the development of agriculture and industry in the Far East of the Netherlands. The 10 million African population, plus the tens of millions of natives in the Far East, and the more than 30 million Dutch population, are no less than the population of the United States, and are comparable to the British and French empires. Although the income of African social development is low, it also ranks first on the African continent and has the best development. The natives of the Far East are much better than the national economy of the Kingdom of Siam, with a per capita income more than double that of the citizens of the Kingdom of Siam, and comparable to the Russian Empire. The per capita income of the Dutch is the highest in the world, surpassing the British. In such a domestic market, the demand for agricultural products and industrial products is strong. Stimulated by the expansion of the Far East, the demand for machines and other industrial products in the Dutch domestic market gradually increased, which further promoted the development of the Dutch local industry and even triggered the outbreak of the Dutch Industrial Revolution. This virtuous cycle economy has enabled the Netherlands to gradually enter the track of rapid economic development. Capitalism has developed into a monopoly period, and the industrialization of the Netherlands has developed rapidly like Britain, and people's ideas and views have changed accordingly. At first, the Dutch people firmly believed in the laissez-faire policy adopted by the government in economic and social affairs. In 1866, Francis Bob, a professor at the University of The Hague in the Netherlands, published a book Political Economy of the Netherlands, which clearly pointed out this view of the Dutch, which caused a good response in the Netherlands. In 1859, Darwin, a famous British biologist, published The Origin of Species, which shocked the entire academic and religious circles and strongly impacted the creation theory of the Bible. Darwin's theory of biological evolution in The Origin of Species launched an academic revolution against the religious creationism and the species immutability theory of Linnaeus and Cuvier, which shocked the world at that time. Since the theory of evolution violated the creationism in the Bible, it has always been the focus of religious debate since its inception, especially the sentence in The Origin of Species, "The development of things is controlled by the principles arranged by God, because things have their own development rules." Although it has attracted many opposing theories, after several years of development, people have gradually believed in this theory. In recent years, under the promotion of William Iv's Light and Dark Sides, the spread of Darwin's theory of evolution in the Netherlands has also contributed to this idea. Most Dutch people agree with Darwin's natural law of survival of the fittest and slowly apply this creed to their own social life. Human nature is selfish. Pursuing personal interests is the only motivation for people to engage in economic activities. At the same time, people are rational. As rational economic people, people can obtain the greatest personal interests in their personal economic activities. If this economic activity is not interfered with, then, guided by the invisible hand of the price mechanism, people will not only maximize their personal interests, but also promote public interests. In January 1862, William IV held The Wealth of Nations, which is considered the Bible of the economic world, in his left hand and The Origin of Species in his right hand at the Dutch Parliament. He asked the Dutch Parliament and government to promote the development of people's thoughts while also requiring the development of self-regulation capabilities in the social economy to provide a real soil for the development of free competition in the Dutch economy. Due to the strong support of William IV, the spread of these two ideas in the Netherlands further made the Dutch firm in their laissez-faire economic strategy. In early 1862, Professor Sackm, the dean of the School of Economics at the University of Groningen, which ranks third in the Netherlands and 21st in the world, often used the theory of survival of the fittest to analogize students in class, which was generally welcomed by students. Sackm's views later gradually evolved into the social Darwinism. With the advent of this theory, people's business activities and social relations are, to some extent, governed by Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. Obviously, the Dutch, who advocate freedom, do not like the government to strictly control the economy, but this does not mean that they will also oppose the government's implementation of some normative measures in the economic field. It is under such opinions that the Dutch cabinet government and state governments have implemented a series of economic control measures. The most notable are banking laws, tariffs, the improvement of the internal structure of the legislative body, and the granting of public land to railway companies. The Dutch do not think that these regulations are contrary to the concept of free competition. On the contrary, it is these regulations that create more free space for the development of the Dutch economy. With the development of large enterprises and financial organizations and the changes in social and economic relations in the Netherlands, the Dutch are eager to obtain more goods and services brought by industrialization, and their peers are also worried about the negative impact of new social relations. The gradually developed large enterprises have formed a monopoly, and their powerful forces have posed a huge threat to the stability and order of society. The Dutch elite's concerns about industrial giants are mainly focused on monopoly. The famous Dutch East India Company continued to exist in the 17th and 18th centuries. They had 150 transport ships at the time, which would monopolize more than 80% of the Netherlands' transportation capacity to and from all over the world. Then they threw out high monopoly prices, which would inevitably endanger the rights and interests of the transportation industry and form a self-hit on the Netherlands' overseas trade. Reduce the convenience of using overseas resources in the industrialization of the Netherlands. At present, although some monopolists have indeed raised unreasonable prices, it has not yet formed a trend. On the contrary, the prices of commodities are constantly falling. It seems that monopoly has the benefit of improving productivity. After all, it concentrates resources, and people's worries seem to be a bit unfounded. Ordinary people in the Netherlands do not feel deeply about this. However, In fact, the destruction of economic opportunities by monopolists and the threat to Hellen national democracy are more worrying. The influence of industrial enterprises and financial tycoons is more worrying than their wealth. Therefore, the most famous conservative economist in the Netherlands, Professor Torck of the University of Amsterdam, reminded that if there are no restrictions, companies around the world will eventually control the government. People should be convinced that now is just not the right time. The Dutch conservative professor warned that if no action is taken in the next few years, the rich and capable people in the Netherlands will stand on one side, and the large number of ordinary people will stand on the other side, while the middle force and source of power for government rule will come from the latter. The famous international political expert and president of Leiden University Herman van Perron also supported Torck's statement. He also said, "Anarchy is bad, but what is worse is that the power in the hands of the rich has become irresponsible power." He suggested that the government should stand up at this time to limit the influence of enterprises. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.